Respected Governor, State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Jameel Ahmed, respected Deputy Governor, Mr. Salimullah, respected Senior Director, Finance, Asian Development Bank, Ms. Christine Engstrom, presidents of banks and senior representatives of the public and private sector, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. My name is Faika Naseem, and as the National Code Coordinator for the We Finance Code in Pakistan, it is my honor to be your MC for its launch ceremony today. Ladies and gentlemen, the launch of the We Finance Code in Pakistan signifies a historic step being taken by State Bank of Pakistan to make real progress for advancing women's access to financing in the country. And we're truly honored to commence this journey in the presence of such distinguished dignitaries. Before we formally begin our proceedings, let's start with a recitation from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Jazakallah. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now request Deputy Governor, State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Salimullah, to please give his welcome remarks.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Governor Sahib, with your permission, respectable Senior Director, Asian Development Bank, Ms. Christine Engstrom, esteemed international guests, presidents and CEOs of banks, senior representatives of the public and private sector, respected colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor for me to welcome you all at the launching ceremony of the We Finance Code in Pakistan. Please accept my sincere thanks and gratitude for joining us on this important occasion, traveling from far and beyond to be part of this initiative by State Bank of Pakistan. The We Finance Code is an important milestone in Pakistan's journey towards financial inclusion and women in economic empowerment. I would like to sincerely thank Asian Development Bank and the Financial Alliance for Women, particularly its CEO. Probably she has to leave, I think, last evening due to some family emergency. And let me recognize her contribution and role for this. Ms. Enes Murray, and in her place, I think there is some representative of the Alliance, Mr. Istanas Sizepe, if I'm properly pronouncing his name. Then we are really grateful to our colleague from Sri Lanka, who has joined us from, she is the Deputy Director from Ministry of Finance, Sri Lanka. She is Mr. Peruka Rasanjali. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. And my extreme thanks to the presidents and CEOs of the banks for joining us on this important event, and this widespread participation from across the stakeholder is reflective of the overall commitment that we have been having with respect to financial inclusion and women empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, that financial inclusion has been the key strategic objective of the central bank for the last at least 2 decades. And we have been taking various opportunities, various initiatives so that the financial inclusion level could be increased. And considering the critical importance of financial inclusion in empowering the low-income segment, creating business and employment opportunities for the low-income segment, and its role in the overall objective of having an inclusive economic growth, we have kept it as the strategic goal in our Vision 2028 as well. Since 2015, we have given 3 financial inclusion strategies. The last one was given last year. And the objective was that we should be having a strategic focus with respect to this objective of increasing the financial inclusion level. And let me share with you that with that strategic focus, we have been able to increase the financial inclusion levels from just 16% in 2015 to 67% at the moment. It's a more than 4-fold increase that we have been able to achieve. Similarly, with respect to the gender gap, we have been able to minimize that gender gap, though still it's a pretty high level. It's right now it's at 33%, but we have brought it down to 33% from well above 50% just 6-7 years back. So, as I said, that the latest financial inclusion strategy we have launched last year, and the objective is that, inshallah, we would at least be increasing the overall financial inclusion level to 75% and minimizing this gender gap to 25%. It is right now 33%. We will be making extensive efforts so that this gap could be minimized. You see that despite this mega achievement, I would say a mega achievement, just from 16% to 67% in about a decade, still what we see, the overall financial access levels of the women are pretty low. Let me give and share some of the examples with you that still 52% of the women are not having any bank account or even wallets. So more than half of the adult women population is not having any bank accounts or even the mobile wallets. Over 3/4 of the unbanked adult population in the country are women. The overall unbanked, and of that, more than 67-68% is, rather 75% is the women that are financially excluded. And just 2% of the adult women are currently the bank borrowers. When I say bank borrowers, it includes the microfinance banks as well. This is due to both this state of affairs, that the women financial exclusion, I would say, is due to both the demand side as well as the supply side issues. On the demand side, what we see, there's social constraints such as low mobility of our women, limited land and other assets ownership, and very low levels of financial literacy. All these demand side constraints limits their ability to access the formal financial services. On the supply side, what we see, that the banks and financial institutions, their products, their policies, their products, their rollout strategies, their practices have traditionally been male-centric. And I would not be blaming them for this, because the demand was predominantly coming from the male side, because on the demand side, there was relatively low demand on the, as far as the women entrepreneurs are concerned. So that's why they were more centric, the policies, products, strategies, and the branch setup that was also largely male-centric. Then the HR trainings and the orientations, as well as the culture and the working environment, have at best been neutral, not positively biased towards the women, so that the women financial inclusion could be increased. In this backdrop, in 2021, the central bank came up with a very important initiative, I believe. That initiative was the banking on equality. And the objective was that the overall policies, practices, products, and the culture could be positively biased towards towards facilitating the women community and the women to access the formal financial services. The policy explicitly acknowledges the unique barriers that women face and give directions. Here, let me say this. The subject is so important, so I'm not scared of using the word directions. That give directions to the banks to embed gender lens in their policies, products, and practices. But it's not a direction, it's a partnership, and it's a collaboration that we work together so that the objective could be achieved. And let me say this, what is the impact that we have been able to achieve in these last 3-4 years? We in fact it was formulated in 21, and it was practically launched in 2022 at the beginning. So in this period, over 13,000 women employees have been inducted in the banks. This represents 42% of the total new inductions that have been made by the banks. The share of women in the bank's HR has increased from 13% in 2021 to 17% at the moment, and the gender gap in financial inclusion has reduced by 6%. It used to be 39% when we started the banking on equality in 2021, and right now it is 33%. And very encouragingly, with the lead and with the kind of an aura that has been created with the banking on equality policy, the other policymakers and the regulatory bodies, they are such as SCCP, NADRA, and PTA, they have also started developing their own gender mainstreaming frameworks. However, we are cognizant of the fact that while we have been able to increase the financial inclusion levels and reduce the gender gap based on the account ownership. These numbers are based on the account ownership, but we still believe that the access to finance as a whole, across the country, across the gender, and particularly for the women, is still very low. That we need to work extensively in a collaborative manner so that this access to finance could be increased. And let me say this V-Finance Code is coming at a very opportune time. And our very objective of showing our excitement towards adopting this code and becoming its signatory is this very issue that there is very low women financial inclusion. And we are extremely hopeful and positive that inshallah, with the overall patronage, ownership, and policies and procedures that, and the principles and the support that we will be having under this V-Finance Code, that would enable us to achieve the objective that we should be able to make a big dent in this overall issue of women financial exclusion. So we would be able to bring more and more women entrepreneurs particularly, to access the financial services. I'm extremely happy to announce here that with central bank took that initiative that we are adopting, so far 20 banks have also voluntarily adopted and agreed to sign this WeFinance Code. And I'm extremely hopeful, inshallah, that as we move forward, further banks and financial institutions and other stakeholders would be joining us in this drive, in this commitment towards achieving women financial inclusion. And then let me thank again all the stakeholders, including World Bank, including Women Financial Inclusion, Alliance of Women Financial Inclusion, and other stakeholders for their support and for their contribution in having this objective achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing the objective of why we're doing this initiative and for setting the stage for the day. Ladies and gentlemen, State Bank of Pakistan and Asian Development Bank have enjoyed a long-standing partnership on financial sector development in the country. And we're pleased that ADB is a technical partner for State Bank of Pakistan on this initiative as well. Today, we're honored that Ms. Christine Engstrom, Senior Director of Finance at Asian Development Bank, has joined us today all the way from Manila. She leads ADB's sovereign finance sector operations, supporting financial sector development across ADB's developing member countries. I would like to request Ms. Engstrom to please come on stage and share her vision for ADB's role in this initiative.
To move the mic down a little bit. Good morning, everyone, and Honorable Governor, Deputy Governor, distinguished colleagues from the State Bank of Pakistan, esteemed development partners and banks, and friends of inclusive finance. Assalamu alaikum, and good morning to everyone. It's really a great honor to be here today and to represent the Asian Development Bank at the official launch of the WeFinance Code in Pakistan, an initiative that we consider both timely and transformative. And I have to add, I was talking to my colleague, that I think this is one of our largest WeFinance Code launches to date. So I'm very proud to be here and to be working with all of you. At the heart of this effort lies a powerful truth, that women's financial inclusion is no longer a peripheral agenda. It is a central pillar of economic development. It's really essential to driving inclusive growth, strengthening financial systems, and building long-term resilience. ADB is proud to stand alongside the government of Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan, and our partners in the financial and development community to support the foundational work that has really led us to this important milestone. At ADB, women's inclusion is not only a strategic priority, it is a development imperative. We believe that it is an opportunity. Financial systems must be designed to work for women and not around them. Despite their enormous contributions to Pakistan's economy, whether as entrepreneurs, workers, or caregivers, millions of women remain excluded from the formal finance sector. Only 13% of the borrowers are women, and less than 1/3 have access to a bank account. So clearly there's an opportunity for growth here for the banking sector. And these figures are not just statistics, they are actually a call to action, a reflection of entrenched gaps in policy, in product design, in access, and in agency. We commend the State Bank of Pakistan for taking bold and strategic steps to address these gaps. The Banking on Equality policy framework has already begun to shift mindsets and institutions, embedding gender inclusion into the DNA of your financial sector. ADB is proud to have supported this work through dedicated technical assistance. With the adoption of the WeFinance Code, the State Bank of Pakistan is now catalyzing the broader banking sector to commit to real, measurable outcomes for women clients. As a partner, ADB is also supporting the We Finance Code across other markets, but we are especially proud to back its rollout in Pakistan. We are committed to walking alongside the signatory institutions, helping them turn ambition into action and intention into impact, and then to really seize those opportunities for your banks. I would also like to highlight our flagship initiative in this space, the Women's Inclusive Finance Sector Development Program. This is a $500 million program with the government of Pakistan, where it's actually designed to narrow the gender finance gap at scale. This program combines policy-based lending and technical assistance to drive sector-wide reform and provide access to finance for over 2 million women. This is not about one bank or one initiative at all. It's about building a system where women are not invisible, where we're integral as clients, leaders, and innovators, and partners as well, too. On behalf of ADB, I'd like to extend our heartfelt congratulations to the State Bank of Pakistan, the We Finance Secretary, and then all of you, our partners, for your leadership and vision. We are honored to really be part of this journey, and we affirm our full commitment and support to this as we move forward together. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Engstrom, for those inspiring words and sharing how ADB also helps State Bank in this initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, the We Finance Code is being led worldwide by the World Bank Group, and the woman at the helm of it is Ms. Wendy Telecki. As the head of the We Finance Secretariat in World Bank, she is helping to support women entrepreneurs in over 60 developing countries by increasing their access to finance, markets, and technology. For her leadership and advocating for women's economic empowerment, she was also featured in Forbes' 50 Over 50 Women in Finance. She could not be with us in person, but we are grateful that she has recorded a special message for this event, and I would like our team to kindly play that for us now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Wendy Telecki, and I run the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, which is housed at the World Bank, but works across the world with multilateral development banks, including the Asian Development Bank, to support women entrepreneurs with access to finance and training and capacity building, and also policy work. 18 months ago, we launched the We Finance Code at the World Bank IFC annual meetings in Marrakesh, together with our multilateral development bank partners and also other global partners who are supporting this effort around the world. The code has been on an amazing journey since then. We have almost 30 countries that have already launched the code or that we expect to launch the code in the coming months, and over 250 financial institutions that have signed on to make commitments under the code. The We Finance Code was inspired by Pakistan's banking on equality law, which has really done so much to show us what can be done through policy reforms to include more women in the financial system. The State Bank of Pakistan has been a leader on this front and has really shown other countries how to move forward in this space. The banking on equality law has really helped us to see the work that we can do on financial inclusion for individuals, and also to think about how financial institutions themselves should think about employing women and ensuring there are women in leadership in the financial institutions. I commend all of you who are working so assiduously to advance the goals of the banking on equality law. We're also excited that the We Finance Code is coming in to complement this work that's already been done and to add the element of support for women-led businesses, and in particular for SMEs. Women-led businesses, which is the focus of what WeFi is doing, is an untapped asset around the world that has not found its way to grow as significantly as it can. We see women entrepreneurs as a key element for increasing female labor force participation around the world, because women-led businesses are much more likely to employ women than male-led businesses are. They also have opportunities to grow if we can remove barriers to growth, like access to finance and policy reforms. Women entrepreneurs are also more likely to provide products and services into the market that serve women and that serve their communities. Businesses that help provide care service, education services, address climate challenges in their markets, and other products and services that are not fully developed for women in their markets. We also know that women entrepreneurs invest more in their families with the income that they earn from their businesses. And that goes to improve education benefits, healthcare benefits, and nutrition benefits for children in the countries where they operate. So I wanted to thank the Asian Development Bank, the Financial Alliance for Women, the State Bank of Pakistan, and all of you who are there today, especially the banks that are signing, for committing to work to support women-led SMEs. By joining the code, you're joining a community of champions that includes over 30 countries and well over 250 institutions, each of them making commitments to do more along the 3 pillars of the We Finance Code. These pillars include naming a champion from each institution who's going to be accountable for ensuring that that institution is doing the most they can do to support women entrepreneurs. These champions are change agents who will drive the efforts in their institutions to move forward with the We Finance Code. The second pillar of the code is data. And we're working with the central banks around the world, with OECD and others, to ensure that we have a new data set on how much financing is going to women entrepreneurs, including not just the volumes and numbers of clients, but other indicators that help us understand whether those women entrepreneurs are using finance in a healthy way. So are their firms actually thriving? And finally, the third pillar of the code is to take actions that are going to help women entrepreneurs, either with new products or new services. We also see many financial institutions, and we highly recommend setting targets for how much financing should be going to women entrepreneurs that will stretch the institution. And also we're seeing a lot of institutions look at capacity building and how they can elevate the capacity of women entrepreneurs to build their pipeline more aggressively. In addition to the individual commitments that each institution makes, the code creates a community that can work together towards collective goals to identify additional policy reforms or actions that might be needed in the ecosystem to remove barriers for women entrepreneurs. And we hope the code in Pakistan will go beyond the banks to include fintechs, other digital finance institutions, insurance companies, and equity funds as well. We want to make sure that the entire financial system is thinking about how they can accelerate finance for women entrepreneurs. Finally, in a couple of weeks, I'll be at the Finance for Development conference in Sevilla, and I wanted to make a broader point that the We Finance Code is helping us move forward on SDG 5, supporting women and girls, and our efforts around the global community to create jobs, especially in developing markets. At a time when development funding is constrained, and especially funding for women is going down in the development community, we see the code as a way to counterbalance that and move forward with additional funding for women in the markets that we're serving. So we see this not just as a specific activity that's going to help growth in individual countries, but we also believe that this will help build gender equality around the world towards our global development goals. Again, thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your passion for a financial system that includes women in every way. I'm really looking forward to seeing the progress that you're making in Pakistan as you continue to lead in this area. And I wish you the very best for today's event. Thank you all.
We're grateful to Ms. Wendy Teleki's inspiring words. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be moving towards a presentation which will focus on the state of women's access to finance in Pakistan. And it will highlight why We Finance Code is relevant to us. For this, I am honored to invite the National Code Champion for We Finance Code in Pakistan, Director, Agriculture Credit and Financial Inclusion, Mr. Abid Qamar. Please give him a warm welcome.
Okay. So thank you, Faika, and Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here among all these key stakeholders while we are launching this V-Finance code. As a national champion for this code, I'm going to give you an overview of the Pakistan's case for joining the V-Finance code. So as you can see, the significance of women's economic empowerment, there has been a lot of research and work done, and that says that if we improve women's economic empowerment, its overall impact on the GDP is pretty significant. There are some studies by ADB and the Islamic Development Bank, which says that overall, if women are empowered, and achieving the gender parity in workforce could boost the overall GDP up to like 28 trillion globally. And if you focus only on South Asia, it can add up to like $500 billion to the economies of the South Asia. And in case of Pakistan, of course, by improving this gender gap, reducing this gender gap, Pakistan's GDP could also be boosted by almost like 30%. So it's a pretty significant impact that we can anticipate that if we work on reducing the gender gap. So, this overall social and cultural independence, that also has a very significant impact. And women's economic empowerment begins with the independence of the choices. Choices as much as like a very important choice of a lifetime, which is choosing a husband. So World Bank studies shows that if those women who choose their husbands, they are more likely to own a financial account and the digital assets. As we can also, I'm sure that among all the people sitting here, we can also experience that. Also, in terms of education, women with tertiary education are most likely to have a bank account. So education will play an important part in financial inclusion and its overall impact. Gender equality and financial inclusion. So financial inclusion in case of Pakistan, for example, through bank branches, ATMs, or loan access, it correlates strongly with lower gender inequality. And lastly, but not the least, that there's a case for banks also. Expanding the financial services to women may increase banking revenue up to like USD 650 million in Pakistan. This is based on a study by the Alliance for Financial Inclusion. So overall, this is the significance of women's economic empowerment. Now I'll share with you some of the numbers of Pakistan population and its constituents. So this is a short video, so it's a self-explanatory. It will just help you out to see what the numbers say. Okay. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the key takeaway is that among all the working age population of the women, which is around like 79 million, only 17 million women are employed. The rest are not. So overall, I think leaving like 62 million out of the economic activities. And for the context, this is just equal to the population of Canada. So as you can imagine that the size of the Canadian population here is completely unemployed. So with this, when we look at the current state of financial inclusion in Pakistan, so we can see in two respects, account ownership and then the access to finance. First, let me just share with you the account ownership. So out of the 95 million adults who have at least one bank account, only 1/3 of the depositors are women. And they constitute like 50% of the total adult women population, which means that only like half of the adult population of women, they are having a deposit account. Whereas as compared to them, to the women, the men have like 83% of the males have at least one bank account. So this leaves us with a gender gap of around like 33%. Similarly, when you look at the access to finance, so we have only 7.5 million adults who have at least one outstanding bank loan, and only like 1/5 of these borrowers are women. So as Lisa also mentioned earlier, that only 2% of the female population are having at least one outstanding loan. And whereas in case of men, it's only 8% who have at least one outstanding loan. Although here the gender gap looks very small as 6%, but this is primarily because overall the financing to the individuals is very low, so that's why this is the case. So this is the overall situation of the financial inclusion. And so what are the reasons that, that there is low financial inclusion or there is low women economic empowerment? So there are several reasons. So let me just highlight some of them with you. So overall, it starts with the social and cultural barriers. So social and cultural barriers, a World Bank study shows that just the lack of owning a mobile phone, that is also linked to a higher probability, if they have a mobile phone, then they are more likely to have employment and higher earnings among them. So women, in terms of like the owning a mobile phone, only 35% of the women have mobile phones in their own name as compared to men whose share is like 84%. Whereas using the mobile phone is much higher in case of women, which is like 85% of the women they use, which means that they do not own a mobile phone although they are using them. Whereas access to internet is only 8% of the women, they have access to internet, whereas those women who have ever used a computer, they are like 9% only. So because of these enhanced gender norms, disproportionate domestic responsibilities, and male-dominated decision-making structures, they contribute to creating a societal framework that limits women's ability to work. So second is mobility. It all begins, so once women are allowed, we all know that we experience these things and we can observe among in our society, said that the first challenge women face is that they have to ask their male maybe members of the family if they could work, or they cannot. Even if they want to have education, most of them have to ask their male members if they could do so or not. Once they are done with that, if they are allowed, the next challenge is how to move around, how to go outside the home and work or go for education. So mobility is the next biggest challenge that the women face. So, 1 in 3 women report feeling unsafe in public spaces, especially when using public transport. As a result, 81% of women's owned enterprises are home-based. So most of the women, they decide that they will only work from home. This is just because there are some mobility constraints which they face. Also, research also shows that those among these entrepreneurs, those who are married or have higher education show greater mobility, which shows the important role of husbands. Here I would like to highlight one initiative which was taken by ADB, I think, and that we can also observe in Karachi particularly. That's the beginning of the pink buses in the city. Although the pink buses are, the number may be very little and still it's not very significant, but still that is an initiative that is directed towards improving the mobility of the women. But of course, as we can see, this is in Karachi, and of course in rest of the country there are a lot of women who do not have the privilege of using buses which are introduced for them. So second is mobility, and then education and entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial skills. So data shows that like over 47 million girls have never attended school, while only 2 million girls enrolled in graduate program. So among all the economically active women, half of them are not literate. So this is another reason. And education skill, and then financial literacy and awareness, I don't need to explain it more. We all know that. What are the constraints? And lastly, it is the access to collateral and finance, which is another factor that hinders their economic participation. So as our Deputy Governor Salimullah Sahab also mentioned about the banking on equality, so I'll just quickly go through these, that these are some of the pillars, these are the pillars of the banking on equality policy that has actually improved the overall financial inclusion in the country. So basically, gender diversity in financial institutions, women-centric products, women champions at the financial institutions, also robust gender disaggregated data, and the policy forum and gender. All these pillars of the banking on equality helped us to improve financial inclusion in the country. So these numbers, I think key numbers were also shared by Deputy Governor Saab, so I will not repeat those numbers. So overall staffing has improved, women active accounts have improved, microfinance women borrowers have improved, and these women champions, we also now have like 81% of the bank branches, they have their women champions. And of course, trainings also play a role. Board of directors, all banks now have a female representation in their boards. Banks have introduced women-centric products, and they have their WFS departments as well, and women-friendly policies. So this is all about that. So now, what is next? So next is this. We have already introduced the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. We have done BOE. We are going to launch BOE 2.0 soon. And we have also launched National Financial Education Roadmap. So next is our V-Finance Code implementation. So this is the next step that we are going to take for improving access to finance for women. And of course, this will all be based on gender analytics. So gender data, we will be developing gender data dashboard and digitalization. So this is all the work, and let me just share with you that the State Bank has already been sharing the gender disaggregated data, which is available on our website and different publications. So overall, the global signatories of the V-Finance Code, of course, 19 countries have joined, and countries like Egypt, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Uzbekistan, they have already done that. And in case of Pakistan, State Bank signed the V-Fi code in February 2025, and our implementing partner is ADB. And so as now the different national actors will be joining, and the financial services providers, they will be joining this V-Finance code. So what are the code requirements? I think The video message by the World Bank head, she also mentioned about these things. 3 things we need to do for joining the We Finance Code. We need to identify the leadership. In case of State Bank, I'm honored that I've been chosen to be the national champion for the code, and FICA will be our national coordinator for this We Finance Code. Second is data. Of course, without data, we cannot make good decisions. So we will be sharing data, gender desegregated data with the World Bank, and also the action, what we are going to do in future, what will be our steps taken for improving the access to finance for women. That is the third part of this. So overall, as mentioned to you earlier, so 20 institutions have joined. Among them, 14 are commercial banks and 6 microfinance banks. So, and lastly, as National Code, the National Code champion and State Bank as the leader for this We Finance Code, we will be focusing on mobilizing the national ecosystem, part of which is today we are launching this. All the banks are, many of the banks have joined, and then we will also request other players, the policymakers, the regulators to join this, important initiatives. And of course, we will be leveraging our resources to do that. And peer engagement and collaboration is will be one key element, because without having discussion and learning from each other, it will not be possible how to move forward. As I said, WMSME data and capacity building. So these are some of the things that State Bank will be focusing on. So with this, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that enlightening presentation. I would now like to invite our chief guest for this ceremony, Honorable Governor, State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Jameel Ahmed, to please share his keynote address and his vision for women's economic empowerment.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Christine Angstrom, Asian Development Bank team and World Bank team, Mr. Salimullah, our Deputy Governor, Chairman PBA Zafar Masood Saab, CEOs of banks and other financial institutions, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Code in Pakistan. I thank each of you for joining us on this important occasion as we inaugurate a landmark initiative by the State Bank of Pakistan in partnership with Asian Development Bank. I would like to especially express my sincere gratitude to Ms. Christine Angstrom and her dedicated team at the Asian Development Bank for their steadfast support in making the signing of the We Finance Code possible. I also like to extend my appreciation to the World Bank for leading this important global initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, economic growth holds little meaning unless it is both sustainable and inclusive. To achieve this, we must ensure macroeconomic stability while expanding economic opportunities for all segments of the society. This will require and will ensure broad-based prosperity on which our future generations can thrive. As many of you know, the past few years have posed formidable challenges for our economy, businesses and households. Both the SBP and the Government of Pakistan implemented tough but necessary macroeconomic stabilization measures. As a result, thankfully, we are now out of the difficult period. Inflation has come down sharply. The current account has turned into a surplus, and SBP FX reserves are rising. The exchange rate is relatively stable, and economic growth is also picking up gradually. Most importantly, the economic outlook at present is far more promising than a couple of years ago. We have found ourselves at this juncture many times in the past. However, the period of stabilization has often been followed by a boom-bust cycle. To avoid repeating these patterns, it is crucial not to repeat past mistakes, such as accelerating demand and economic growth too rapidly, especially in inward-looking sectors. Instead, we must use this opportunity to undertake structural reforms and lay the foundation for sustainable and inclusive economic growth. This is precisely the guiding principle of current macroeconomic policy making in Pakistan. Both SBP and the government remain steadfast in their approach to transitioning from recently hard-earned economic stability to a medium-term economic transformation. This resolve is reflected in our prudent and cautious monetary policy stance, fundamentals aligned exchange rate, and ongoing fiscal consolidation and improving debt dynamics. This approach is helping us ensure overall macroeconomic stability, building fiscal and external buffers, and supporting sustainable economic growth. With the focus now increasingly shifting towards structural reforms, we strongly believe that this time is indeed different for Pakistan's economy. Let me briefly share some reasons behind our confidence. First, average headline inflation has declined to 4.5% in fiscal year 2025, the lowest level in the last 9 years. We are increasingly confident that with prudent and coordinated mix of monetary and fiscal policies, inflation will stabilize within its target range of 5 to 7%. Second, the FX market remains stable, driven by external account outperformance and a high-quality buildup of FX reserves buffers. The current account balance is projected to remain supportive, driven by robust remittances and resilient exports, despite rapid growth in both the value and volume of imports in line with the ongoing economic recovery. Third, SBP's FX reserves are now almost 5 times higher than the lower levels at the start of the calendar year 2023. This reserve buildup is driven by our FX purchases rather than external debt raised by the government, as was the case between 2015 and 2022. We are publishing our intervention data to ensure transparency. Fourth, fiscal policy has proactively supported monetary tightening as reflected in the second consecutive primary surplus in fiscal year 2025. Both tax and non-tax revenues have shown sizable growth, while overall expenditures have remained relatively contained. GOP is targeting a higher primary surplus for the fiscal year 2026. Fifth, economic growth is showing signs of gradual, consistent, and sustainable recovery. Unlike in the previous episodes of boom-bust cycles, the current policy mix remains conducive to a lasting increase in economic activity rather than a short-sighted, fragile, and populist sugar rush. Lastly, but most importantly, The focus is now shifting towards reforms that address structural issues. Efforts to widen of tax base, privatize SOEs, and liberalize trade will bring greater efficiency, enhance the role of private sector, and improve competition. Ladies and gentlemen, today's event and the initiative represent another strategic step towards fostering inclusive and sustainable economic growth by prioritizing women's economic participation at the heart of our national development agenda. The case for gender equality is both moral and economic. No country can thrive when half of the population is underdeveloped, is underemployed, and underserved. In Pakistan, women's labor force participation is just 22%, and with only 164,000 women entrepreneurs. Gender gaps in education, mobility, skills, and access to financial services continue to hinder women's full economic participation. It is also one of the major causes of low savings as well as low investment in Pakistan compared to many regional peers. Pakistan is now making progress. SBP's Banking on Equality policy, launched in 2021, has already laid the foundation, leading to a significant stride in improving women economic participation during last few years. Moreover, our 5-year strategic plan, which called Vision 2028, prioritizes financial inclusion, gender diversity, and digitalization to improve access to finance and support women's empowerment in line with government efforts. Guided by this vision, we are working to introduce the Banking on Equality to an ambitious, systematic, and determined effort to dismantle barriers women facing in the financial system. Recently announced Prime Minister's Women Empowerment Package aimed at promoting gender equality and empowering women in Pakistan. At today's launch, SBP's endorsement of the WE Finance Code indicates our commitment to addressing gender inequality through collective actions. As code champion, SBP will collaborate with financial institutions, regulators, government agencies, private sector, and academia to build an inclusive ecosystem for women entrepreneurs. As I conclude, I would like to thank the banks that have joined the code and declared their commitment to build a future where every aspiring woman and entrepreneur has the opportunity to succeed. I would like to urge other stakeholders to also come forward and become part of this global movement. Lastly, I once again acknowledge Asian Development Bank team for their support in building an inclusive financial ecosystem in Pakistan. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, we now arrive at the most anticipated moment of today's event, the signing ceremony of the WE Finance Code. As Abid Saab just shared, we are pleased that 20 banks have pledged their institutional commitments to the code to reduce the gender gap in financing. Now, we would like to recognize those banks and seek their commitments to join the National Code Coalition, which will work together on those actions. Let me share how we will proceed with the digital signing ceremony. I will now invite each bank president or senior representative in the order of the date of their signing of the commitment. When I call your name, please come on stage to digitally sign the document next to your bank's logo. After you've signed the document, kindly come at the front of the stage And once everybody has signed, we'll have a group photo with our dignitaries. So let's begin. First, I would like to request representative of HPL Microfinance Bank, Mr. Kashif Zafar.
Thank you.
Next, we have a representative from Bank Islami. Next, President Suneri Bank Limited, Mr. Mohtasham Ahmed. President First Women Bank, Mr. Farooq Iqbal. President HPL Bank, Mr. Nasir Salim. Next, I would like to invite President Sindh Bank Limited, Mr. Anwar Sheikh. President Khushhali Microfinance Bank, Mr. Amir Karachiwala. President Bank of Punjab, Mr. Zafar Masood. Representative from U Microfinance Bank, Ms. Sonia Farooq. Representative from MCB Bank, Mr. Waqas Mahmood. Representative from Mobilink Microfinance Bank. President Bank Al Habib, Mr. Mansoor Ali Khan. President Bank Al Falah Limited, Mr. Atif Bajwa. Representative of Bank of Khyber Limited, Mr. Abdul Ghaffar. President Mizan Bank Limited, Mr. Irfan Siddiqui. President LOLC Microfinance Bank, Mr. Farooq Rashid. President Faisal Bank Limited, Mr. Yusuf Hussain. President Asha Microfinance Bank, Mr. Shuaib Shamim. And from JS Bank, Mr. Syed Kazim Raza. And last but not the least, President National Bank Limited, Mr. Rehmat Ali Hasni. Thank you very much. Now I would like to request the following dignitaries to please come up on the stage for a group photograph. Honorable Governor Mr. Jameel Ahmed, Deputy Governor Mr. Salimullah, Executive Director Sir Samar Hasnain, Senior Director Finance ADB Ms. Christine Engstrom, Mr. Andrew McCartney, and Mr. Shazib Ali from ADB, and Mr. Abid Kamar. I would like to request the Governor to please give a memento to Ms. Christine Engstrom from Asian Development Bank for joining us today at this important session. Congratulations to all the signatories, and thank you to our speakers and participants for joining us at the inaugural ceremony. We now break for refreshments to enjoy this moment with a cup of tea, and we'll resume in 30 minutes with 3 amazing sessions lined up related to the code. Thank you. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will now be moving on to a series of panel discussions to better understand the local and international status of WeFinance Code from practitioners who are implementing it on ground. But before we get into that, there's been a lot of conversation about the code and the market opportunity that exists to tap into the women entrepreneurs. And to understand that better, we now have a presentation from Mr. Istvan Speshi, Senior Consultant Consumer-Centric, who will talk about the customer segmentation frameworks that have been successful all over the world to unlock the opportunity of serving women-owned customers in Pakistan. Mr. Ishtavan has experience of implementing the We Finance Code in 6 other countries, and his presentation today will focus specifically on what can work for Pakistan. Over to you, Mr. Ishtavan.
Thank you, Faika. Hi, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here at the launch of the We Finance Code in Pakistan. Congratulations to SBP for spearheading this important initiative to expand access to capital of women business owners. It is great to be back in Karachi and to see SBP continue its leadership from the visionary financial inclusion strategies and the banking on equality policy to now launching the code. I'm honored to be representing Consumer Centrics, which is supporting the code implementation in 15 countries globally, and thrilled to be contributing to with our expertise. You might notice I'm a fast speaker. This is especially true for topics I deeply care about, both financial inclusion and Pakistan being one of these. So I think we are slightly behind time, so I hope to make use of this. In the next 10 minutes, I will share key insights from the global segmentation study commissioned by VFI and 2 other funders, in which Pakistan was one of the 3 countries where the primary research was conducted. The focus today is to highlight the significant untapped opportunity in Pakistan's women-led businesses, share what we learned about distinct characteristics of the different WSME segments, and suggest ways to meet their specific financial and non-financial needs. The study focused here on formal businesses with in-depth quantitative and qualitative research for over 200 women-led enterprises in Pakistan. So first, to frame the market, Pakistan is home to around 37 million MSMEs, out of which 2 million are formal, and approximately 164,000 of them are women-led or women-owned. Yet, this significant market appears to be largely unserved by the financial sector. This goes hand in hand with what the previous speakers mentioned in their speeches. Financial inclusion remains a key challenge, not only for retail, but in the business clients as well. From the formal businesses in general, about 90% of the MSMEs have access to formal credit, or about 184,000 borrowers, and there are about 5.6 million microfinance borrowers in Pakistan, meaning that about 16% of the informal sector has access to microfinance. We also looked at the untapped revenue potential if the financial sector serves WSMEs more equitably. So this is not calculating with reaching parity, but modeling it if the loan uptake increased from 6% to 16% in the case of the formal WSMEs, and from 7% to 13% in the case of informals. This could translate into over 250 million USD, or a 6% boost to the financial sector's annual revenue, not so trivial growth opportunity. So let's remember these numbers as we understand better the different profiles of the women entrepreneurs who would be generating this opportunity. On the methodology of the study, we took a distinct approach to collecting data on WSMEs and aiming to identify the most meaningful variables for the segmentation, rather than only looking at the business traits, such as sector or number of employees. We also consider the entrepreneur's personal characteristics, professional and business skills, and the broader environment in which they operate. What we found is that all these combined factors shape a growth pathway, forming 3 pathways: either high growth or over 50% growth in annual revenue, moderate growth between 20 and 50%, or low growth, less than 20% growth. In fact, the enterprise growth rate emerged as the most significant differentiator of WSME segments, with each segment showing distinct business traits and entrepreneurial profiles and financial and non-financial needs. We then conducted another statistical scan to understand the factors that put them on the different growth paths. And this led us to identify the 15 key business enablers that most strongly determine which part of the growth path she would fall on. So let's dive in. Looking at from a personal characteristics perspective first, and looking at high growth segments perspective. High growth segment is motivated by personal ambition and success versus getting into business due to financial needs. She is willing and able to take higher risks. She very importantly enjoys both the emotional and financial support of the family. And she tends to have less dependence under 18, which means she will have slightly more time at hand. Professional and business skills. Across the board, formal entrepreneurs in Pakistan are generally more educated, But the high-growth entrepreneurs tend to also have professional experience that directly relates to the areas of business, and they have access to a wider business network that they can turn for support. They're more likely to have stronger hard skills in business or financing, and they're also more actively pursuing business development services that can teach them how to tackle the challenges better. Now onto the business characteristics. From the get-go, more high-growth women set their business up as limited companies compared to sole proprietorship. She tends to hire formal employees on the payroll versus working with temporary or informal workers, and she thinks nationally, internationally versus just operating in a local community. And she's more tech-savvy in the business applications. From the financing angle, there are a number of high-growth women who has a range of collateral available to them. She is banked and has a dedicated business account and not just using the personal account for both business and the personal use cases. And lastly, some of them are open to potential outside investments, willing to give up some control in exchange for growth. So let's meet some of these entrepreneurs. Meet Hina. She's 42, has 2 children, started the company with personal savings and some money from the parents. Previously worked for a national paint company. That's where she got the know-how to spin off her own business, Silk Oshine Paints. She works across manufacturing and retail and has a dedicated business bank account that she's using. However, she never took a loan, but would be interested to do so. What she needs to grow? Mainly capital to fund the expansion plans and to learn better how to enter the new markets and adopt digital tools to aid her. Next one from the moderate segment, meet Ansa, 38 years old, founder of Applewood's Montessori School. She was a government administrator, but driven by the desire to build something of her own, she started the school 6 years ago. She's leading a team of 16 full-time employees, and she's using her personal account compared to using the business account. She doesn't have the necessary collateral for opening a new branch, which she has the plans to do so. And she's using a narrower extent of the banking services, even though she has excellent financial records of the business. What she needs, first of all, funding to open a new school, and she also wants to strengthen her business management skills and looks for capacity building opportunities. And last but not least, Bushra, she's 36, has 4 children, ranging ages 2 to 12, so you can imagine lots of home responsibilities. She has a bachelor's degree and started working as a consultant, but had difficulties to find permanent employment. So she started her business 3 years ago, sourcing and selling artisan products. She has gaps in her business knowledge, but cites time concerns primarily as accessing capacity building. What she needs to grow, flexible capacity building solutions that can be fit into the busy schedule, and she doesn't have collateral, so the needs are more focusing on working capital needs. While the businesses I showcased are quite different and different growth trajectories, they share a few very important things in common. First of all, they are all viable businesses. Second, they're all banked already to a different extent. However, almost none of them are accessing loan facilities that could support their growth and development. So what they need are holistic propositions that has both financial and non-financial components to unlock their full potential. So how do the banks in the room, the new signatories to the code, can make use of this, begin to address this gap? We have a few suggestions. For high-growth businesses, adopt a relationship banking model so that a dedicated banker can make the connections between her and the right products and services, focusing on medium and long-term financing. Explore mezzanine capital or possibly connect her to angel investors or other equity financing opportunities. And from a non-financial angle, mentorship, coaching, and target knowledge transfer, as well as linking them to national and international buyers or suppliers. For the moderate growth segment, offer a value proposition that focuses on working capital loans and cash-based lending. Opportunity for non-financial components would focus on strengthening her hard business skills where she's lacking, provide mentoring and networking opportunities. While for the low growth segments, it's about working capital and cash flow-based lending. We've also seen more interest in Islamic finance in this segment. And for the NFS component, ensure the delivery of the capacity building program that takes into account the challenges of the time constraints she has. So to sum it up, to help your institution tailor its products and services to the different segments needs, we have developed a practical toolkit and a range of supporting tools. So if you can scan the QR code, this will direct you to the reports and resources which can be used to segment and better serve your current and prospective market of the women-led clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ishtavan, for that enlightening presentation. We really learned a lot from that, and I'm sure the banks are also looking at that information closely. So now we will move towards our first panel discussion, in which we will further explore the international case for We Finance Code implementations and learn what kind of ecosystem support is essential for its adoption. Let me introduce the panel. The first panelist is Ms. Ines Marie, CEO, Financial Alliance for Women, which is a trade association of financial service providers driving women's wealth creation worldwide, with over 100 member institutions working in 165 countries. Prior to this, she was the Executive Vice President at Women's World Banking. Our next panelist is Mr. Shozeb Ali, who is the Principal Project Officer, Asian Development Bank. He is leading initiatives on financial inclusion and regulatory reform, and he's also the co-lead of the Women's Inclusive Finance Program at ADB, with over 30 years of experience in financial sector development. He previously also served as the commissioner at SCCP. Our next panelist is Ms. Peruka Rasanjali, Deputy Director, Department of Development Finance at Ministry of Finance, Sri Lanka. She has over 16 years of experience in the public sector in diversified areas, including SME lending. And the panel will be moderated by Syed Samar Hasnain, Executive Director, Financial Inclusion Group, State Bank of Pakistan, who is a career central banker with over 25 years of experience, out of which 15 years has been spent on driving financial inclusion in the country. Thank you to our august panel who have traveled from far and beyond to be part of this conversation. Over to you, Samar Saab.
Thank you very much, Faika. So, I'm honored to moderate this particular session, a very powerful one. So, in terms of the logistic, this session will have 3 rounds of quick questions. The first question will be focused on sharing WeFinance adoption of international experience. The second round of question will be about the role of financial and non-financial services in developing ecosystem for women entrepreneurship. And the third round will be about the support that the various countries are getting or will get in implementation of Women Finance Code implementation. So that's the way, and then finally you see, if the time permits, then probably we can take a question from the audience. And if the time does not permit that, then we'll skip that. So I'll not get into the intro of this, the background of this subject, because we have been listening about that, you see, throughout the morning, this morning. So I'll start, you see, my first question with Ines. So what is the rationale behind this WeFinance Code? Where are countries' implementation journey? What are some early examples of innovation that you want to share? So 3 questions in one. Over to you, Ines.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here in Pakistan. It's a very proud day, I think, for women's financial inclusion. And thank you to the State Bank of Pakistan for being such an amazing leader, both here and globally, with your banking inequality upon which this code builds. Also, of course, thank you to our partners, the Asian Development Bank, who've done a tremendous job, not just on this, but on many aspects of financial inclusion to support the bank. But also to the FSPs in the audience for all the work you've done to date on banking inequality. So why is the WeFinance Code compelling for a country? So we have a very large gender gap globally in access to finance for women entrepreneurs. It's calculated at about $1.7 trillion globally. In this country, it's particularly historic, but you could also say that there's very little lending going on, full stop, really, to SMEs, or at least insufficient amounts. Why we're very excited about this code, so this is approximately 30 countries are implementing the code currently. And last month in Kigali in Rwanda, we had a day workshop with those 30 countries on the code and how they're progressing and so on. But we had 25 other countries in that room for a total of 55 countries that are implementing or starting to implement or thinking about implementing a WeFinance code. Why we like this code a lot is, first of all, it's easy to get your head around. It's very compelling. It basically asks signatories to do three things. One is to get a senior manager behind the code. And this morning we saw the CEOs of 20 FSPs in this country stand up on stage and commit to doing something. And that's very important, leadership from the top down. Secondly, it's based on data. And data is super important to drive transparency and build accountability. If we don't have the data, we don't really know the extent of the gap, and nor do business people really understand the extent of the opportunity. So the fact that it's data-driven is super important. And thirdly, it's about not just financial services, but non-financial services, because we know that to really support women to grow their business, or any business, male or female, they need access not just to financial and business education, to networking, to incubators and accelerators, universities, think tanks. A lot of effort needs to go into building the entrepreneurial ecosystem in countries to support the FSPs then on lend to these bankable customers. So it's an ecosystem approach. And what's very interesting, I think, about the code is that it's bringing together the public and the private sectors in each country into a national coalition. In many countries, like in Pakistan, for instance, it's been led by the central bank initially with the institutions that the bank regulates. And they're sitting on this national coalition, so it's a public-private partnership. And so we see this model that's central bank driven in countries like Nigeria, where they have over 47 signatories so far, in Rwanda, where we were last month, with all of the banks actually signing on. It's a smaller country, but all of the banks, very progressive central bank like you have here in State Bank in terms of financial inclusion of women. And then we see models where the Bankers Association is more actively involved. And this would be, for example, the Dominican Republic. You see this in Mongolia. You see this in Kenya. So this is like right off the bat, in the beginning, it's the central role of the Bankers Association in driving their members to come on board. So this public-private partnership is a very interesting model because it takes both sides of the system. There's not one country in the world that has developed without a proper state-sponsored industrial development policy that's about supporting enterprise growth. And you need the private sector and the public sector together to do that. In terms of impact so far, now it is early days, it only started in 2024, but last week, for instance, in Kyrgyzstan, we saw two policies introduced. One was to increase lower the provisioning required on capital in order to allow more funding to female entrepreneurs. And we also saw another interesting thing, which was raising the ceiling for uncollateralized lending for women entrepreneurs. So two policy initiatives. More broadly, in let's say more advanced, in countries that are more advanced in the code, we've seen banks, for instance, like NatWest in the UK, earmark £2 billion for women entrepreneurs. So that's kind of putting a ring around the money in the portfolio and saying that's going for women and being able to measure that. We've seen the introduction of a one-stop shop. So when I say that, mentioning this non-financial services piece, there's a lot of fragmentation. If I'm a woman sitting in my workshop in Lahore, where do I go to for information? How do I find a mentor? Where are the incubators? Who can support me? And so on. So in some countries now, they're actually putting that into one place on a portal so that you can access a lot of information in one spot and be signposted. And we're also seeing kind of interesting innovations, like there's a company now called Digital Boost. I know I'm going to mention it in the UK, but they want to expand globally. They have 30,000 entrepreneurs being mentored after 12 months of operation by 5,000 other entrepreneurs on a portal that's matching them together. So this is fascinating. It's an example of innovation, seeing a market opportunity. It's a scalable solution. They're white labeling it. They're moving it into different countries. And this is really because of the momentum that's being generated there by the code. So the Financial Alliance for Women is behind it. Many of our members are the leading bank in their own countries on supporting women entrepreneurs, and they have a seat at the table as a result. So I'd encourage everybody in the room to really take this on, and let's solve this gap and move Pakistan forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anis. And the two key messages that I take from your point of view is, and both of the messages are for our colleagues sitting here. Ravinda, you mentioned, you see, all of the banks are now the signatories of that. Pakistan is a bigger, country, but again, that's a message to my colleagues, bankers sitting over here. But the second one was very important point that you mentioned, and I was discussing this morning with the chairman of Pakistan Banks Association, and he himself, offered that the Pakistan Banks Association should also be a signatory to that one. So that's a very important point that you highlighted. So that takes me, and on the non-financial services, I'll come to that, in the second round of discussion in more details. So my next question is from Shazib Ali. So Shazib, can you share lessons from other signatory countries where ADB has supported the code implementation, so Pakistan can also draw on key learnings so far? Over to you, Shazib.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, State Bank and whole team, for making this event successful, and our facility, which has just been closed. So we have been working with multiple countries, and specifically I like to mention our experience with Sri Lanka, Fiji, and Indonesia. And the experiences are different. As you know, this is the first step to sign the V-Finance Code, and from here, it depends from every different country in terms of gap, what is their policy approach, what are their objectives, and how do they approach that. So one thing which I think you should which is also positive in your case, because you have done a lot of work, is creating the infrastructure. And by creating infrastructure, I mean in terms of clear expectation, what are the definitions, how to collect the data, and then subsequently how to use that data, gender disaggregated data. And that is extremely important in terms of building overall infrastructure and how the institutions, which are the stakeholder, how they interact with each other. Because it talks about the whole ecosystem, and whole ecosystem is very important because there are certain demand factors, there are certain supply factors, and including that, then there are certain country-specific needs. So based on that experience, I think aggregator role is very important, and we are happy in this case that State Bank of Pakistan is doing that role. You have one national champion already nominated, and in some cases they have one or two national champions. But more important is the commitment which is coming from the institutions in Pakistan, because the financial sector is largely dominated by the commercial banking, and obviously you being the regulator there. So that would be essentially a very helpful thing moving forward. Simultaneously taking that into account, and if you look at the institutions, for example, in case of Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Fiji, there are different type of institutions who were onboarded. In case of Sri Lanka, and we have our colleague from Sri Lanka over here also, they were largely commercial banks. And in case of Indonesia, it was more of fintech and other financial institutions. And thirdly, in case of Fiji, it was more of microfinance institutions. So that is a mix. So, and if we compare that experience from Pakistan angle, I think as commercial banks and State Bank is taking the first step, so that would be very helpful in sort of galvanizing the overall financial sector, because even in the case of fintechs, even in the case of microfinance institution, major liquidity providers are the commercial banks. And you being the institution which actually is the regulator, that is another thing. And I would like to specifically mention, as I talk about infrastructure, the banking on equality policy of State Bank. You are close to completion of banking on equality policy, and you are now developing banking on equality policy too. And that actually very nicely addresses certain and most of the infrastructure things, whether that be in terms of collecting of gender data, whether that be workplace-related thing. And you have actually invented or came up with something like which gender league tables type of stuff. So they are positive experiences across the different countries, which we can, during the process, also share with you as we move forward on the implementation of that. But you are on the very nice starting point, and this is a very opportune time for sort of signing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shazeb, and I think the examples of all the countries that you gave were more marvelous. The common country in both of you see conversation that comes up is Sri Lanka. And we're lucky to have Peruka with us from Sri Lanka. You travel all the way along, you see, and we know that the bottlenecks, those which were referred by Abid Kamar this morning in Pakistan, they are almost similar, common in Sri Lanka and Pakistan as well. So could you kindly share the key lessons from the Sri Lankan experience of adopting the code and highlight how the Ministry of Finance is championing? Because when I was reading it, I was a bit surprised, because we always thought, oh, it's the job of the central bank that need to do this, to do the financial inclusion and gender financial inclusion. We always thought of central bank doing that. But in case of Sri Lanka, it's very surprising, pleasantly surprised. You see, that Sri Lanka, in case of Sri Lanka, Ministry of Finance is doing that. So would you like to share that?
Yeah,
thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank State Bank of Pakistan and the ADB Resident Mission in Pakistan to inviting me for this event, as well as for the speaker of this panel discussion. When I brief about Sri Lanka, its land area is 65,610 square kilometers, and total population is 22 million, I mean similar like Karachi. So out of total population, women are 52%, women represent 52% and men 48%. Even though such representation, the economic contribution of women is like 32% compared to the 72% of women contribution to the economy. So I think this is a very good initiative implementing this finance code to increase the women participation for the economic contribution, and as well as to increase the access to finance. When we talk about the adopting the finance code in Sri Lanka finance sector, the thing is the past data was not matched with the requirement. So, and the banking, core banking system is also not ready with the system to provide the data requested by the finance code. It is costly and take time. So I think we have given time for banks to upgrade their system to provide data as per the requirement of e-finance code. And also there is no similarity in past data of the banks. So to prepare the disaggregated data, there should be a similarity in data who have signed the e-finance code pledge. So therefore, we have given them a 1 year grace period, because we signed, implemented this code in March 2025. So we have given them a 1 year grace period to upgrade their system and data platform. In addition to that, we are in the process of, because mainly the bank managers engage with the providing data on this, for this e-finance code, not the head office or Ministry of Finance or Central Bank. So we are in the process of making aware the bank managers how to record data, how to compile data, and all that, and also doing public awareness with regard to this WeFinance code. The highlights of the championing is we have called nomination to establish the national coalition, to establish the steering committee and the working committee, and we hope to finalize the WeFinance code national action plan by October to make it fully operationalized, and hope to report data to WeFinance Secretariat. It will be a pilot project. So as semi-annual data, we hope to report by March 2026.
That's great. And we have, Peruka, we have seen that, you see in different jurisdictions, like including Pakistan, that one of the driver that pushes toward this particular, you see, V5 finance code is the unavailability of the data. That's the starting point. Because unless you have got that data in place, you would not be able to make a policy intervention. We would have the wishes, but we don't have the roadmap for that. So that's a very important point. Unfortunately, you see the sort of the panel discussion that we are having is that the one who answers the last question is again ask the first question in the next round as well. So my next question would again be to you, Peruka. And that is, as I mentioned earlier, that financial access to finance, that's an important point. But availability of the non-financial services is again very critical, you see, if you want to develop the ecosystem of women entrepreneurship. So would you like to highlight as to how, in case of Sri Lanka, these non-financial advisory services are playing a role in entrepreneurship of the women and developing the ecosystem? Over to you, yeah.
Actually, with the support of ADB, we have implemented the SME Connect online platform. So to increase to support the women entrepreneurs, to increase their access to finance as well as financial literacy and market access and all that. So under that SME Connect platform, male women entrepreneurs can obtain the training, mentoring, and networking facilities. So at the moment, nearly 1,500 women entrepreneurs have registered in that online platform, and there are training modules in the SME online platform. And voluntarily registered mentors are there, like very well-known entrepreneurs and chambers and all that. So women entrepreneurs can advise when they have issues in developing their businesses. And there are networking facilities as well, like export market and all that. In addition to that, last year we established National Credit Guarantee Institution to provide, because the women entrepreneurs has the problem of providing a suitable collateral when getting loans. So to support all the SMEs who are unable to provide suitable collaterals when getting loans, so we established National Credit Guarantee Institution. Normally, 67% of the loan covered by the National Credit Guarantee Institution, and 1 to 2% premium should be provided, should be paid by the SME to the bank. So when we talk about the women entrepreneurs, by mid of this July, we are going to implement a special product. So the loans provided by the women entrepreneurs, 80% of the loan will be covered by the Credit Guarantee Institution to support them for access to finance, as well as the premium will be to 0.5 to 1.25. So I think it will be a great opportunity for women who are unable to provide collateral when obtaining loans to get the support of Credit Guarantee Institution. In addition to that, NCGI do the financial literacy training among all over the country. So in addition to that, we other government institutions do the training programs on financial literacy, access to finance, market access, and all that. Last year, Parliament enacted the Women Empowerment Act. Under that, National Commission for Women is in the process of establishment. Government is, Ministry of Finance is going to provide necessary budgetary provisions, and that commission will empower the women to economically as well as socially. That's our.
Thank you very much. I think these are the good insights, you see, for our colleagues, you see, from the banking sector sitting over here, because that is always a question as to who should provide that non-financial advisory services. Should it be the financial institutions, the bank themselves, or should there be a separate authority like the one that we have in case of Pakistan, the SMEDA, or what should be the role model in that? Most of the times, you see, understand that probably the financial institutions think that their main focus should be on financial advisory service, on the financial services, not on the non-financial advisory services. But the messages that you gave from the Sri Lankan, you see, economy, I think these are very, very important messages. So my next question is to you, Enes, and that is, can you share some use cases of banks advancing innovative women-centric lending models around the world, particularly leveraging technology? Over to you, Enes.
Thanks for the question. And I do also think that non-financial services can be provided by banks in collaboration with other actors in the ecosystem. And in fact, if you want to be the bank of choice for women, you have to offer non-financial services. And mostly this is done through partnerships. It's not that you're expecting a banker to be a trainer of women entrepreneurs, but linking with a training institution and so on and creating those strategic partnerships is super important, particularly to get the costs down of the provision. But it's the NFS that make it sticky with the customer. It's not the financial services. Remember, financial services can be copied by your competitor. It's a product within 3 months. It's the relationship that you're establishing with the woman that is the sticky piece, and NFS is a critical part of that. In terms of innovation in credit lending, I think an interesting one is out of the Central Bank of Egypt, where they have this new iScore, which is a credit bureau that's owned by the central bank and all of the banks in Egypt. And they have just introduced a system where they're enabling alternative data to be used from telcos and utility companies and other sources to actually create a score for women entrepreneurs. And that was deliberately set up to support women entrepreneurs who, as you said, as the previous speaker said, don't have access to the same collateral. So that's a systems-wide piece of innovation. You also see a lot of innovation around credit scoring in general, and really debiasing algorithms as well is an important piece, and you've seen a lot of that in the media, but it is true that there are some structural factors in algorithms, for example, level of education, level of income, and so on, that are structurally bias against women. So unpacking that bias and trying to ameliorate that. But for an FSP more broadly, thinking about the sales funnel, from awareness to consideration to approval to using the product and to basically reusing and buying up and cross-selling and upselling. What's really important is to gender disaggregate the data of the consumers or your customers going in through each stage of that funnel and identifying why it isn't 50-50. It really should be 50-50 because we are 50% of the population. And some examples of how that works. So for instance, there's a digital lender in Mexico called Cubo Financiero. And what they identified was at the consideration stage of the funnel that they were losing a lot of women. And the reason they were losing women when they looked at the data was basically because in order to be onboarded to this credit institution, you had to read through an awful lot of legalese, and we all know this from being online users. You always have to sign a consent form at some stage. Well, the gender difference was that the women were reading every word of it and they wouldn't get through it, and the men were just going down to the bottom and clicking and getting through the system. So what Cuba did was they worked with the regulator to basically simplify that legalese into digestible language, and also change the UX for the customer so that it was in screenshots that were very easy to read, and that actually increased the flow through. So sometimes the fixes are very, very simple. I would say for women, what's super important is to combine technology with touch. So women do not trust digital financial services providers initially. You need to establish a relationship with them. I think the most profound example of this is a bank in South Africa. It's a member of ours called Time Bank. Time Bank have kiosks in grocery stores which enable a non-banked person to get a bank account within 3 minutes using biometric technology. And after the 3 minutes, and it's a very simple process, it's very much designed for the unbanked population to understand and not to have the records themselves, they can do it biometrically. After the 3 minutes, they get a card, and then they go to the cashier and put money in the card. So Time Bank were doing very well with women. About 45% of the customers were women. And then what they decided to do was to put a human being next to those kiosks, a brand ambassador. And that ambassador came from the same community as the women, so it's the same socioeconomic level, and was really there to kind of coach about what other kinds of products they have and how to use the bank. And their participation of women shot up to 65%. So that's maybe too high actually for them, because really what we're looking for is a 50-50. But nevertheless, what it shows and demonstrates is this importance of having a human being next to the technology. So for women, that's really important. But I'd say the key message is to break down your sales funnel with the gender data and to understand what are the barriers to women at different stages.
Great, thank you. And so we now move to the last round of quick questions, and that is what the 20 signatories that have signed that you see symbolically this morning, what they can get from you see. What support in implementation of VFI code they can get from Alliance for Women. So starting again from Ines.
Okay, so we're a private sector commercial trade association made up of banks, so anybody who becomes a member of ours gets access to a lot of know-how from banks around the world to implement programs. For WeFi, for the WeFi Secretariat, we're kind of a global knowledge partner, and there's a range of activities or trainings that are available to everybody. So one of them is the WeFinance Code Community of Champions, which consists of over 160 people so far from the 30 countries, including the State Bank of Pakistan as a member, and we meet on a quarterly basis to share progress along the code in different elements. We describe the code as having building blocks with two vectors. One is the data one, and one is the coalition and the implementation piece. And so what we do in these webinars is we get countries to speak about how they're tackling different aspects of the code and implementing. So it's a community of practice around that, and people are signatories, and the central banks, of course, are welcome to join that community. It's an open group, but it's for people who are very committed and who have signed on to the code. That meets on a quarterly basis, and we meet once a year in person, and the last time we met was in Kigali. When I mentioned that, we had this workshop with all of the countries. So that's when you meet the community in person. From October I think it's October the 6th to, I think it's October the, sorry, just to get specific, October the 9th to November the 6th this year, we're running the second Gender Data Learning Series, which is a 5-week training to tackle the issue that you mentioned, which is how do you actually get the data out of the system, and what kind of data do you need to complement that data? And so this is a 5-week training. It's online. It's an hour-and-a-half live session once a week, and it's about 2 hours of homework. Last year we had 500 trainees from many, many different countries, mainly financial services providers, but also central banks and data aggregators, because the course really does look at the use cases. So it's not data for data's sake, it's data to actually use it to drive the business and to drive policy. So State Bank of Pakistan will be sending out invitations to the sector to sign up and register for that. We also have a primer on the strategic and business case for women entrepreneurs, and that's very important because we really need to, let us admit this, we need to convince the senior management that there is a business case. And so what this primer does, there's one coming up in Q1 next year. It's a 4-week, only an hour and a half, once a week for 4 weeks, with use cases from banks in different countries that are sharing how they're doing it. It's very interactive, and it's also going to be available to the community of champions. All of this stuff is recorded, and you can go into the Smart Learning platform and look at previous things. And finally, I would say there's an excellent resource on the Wi-Fi Secretariat website, which has a range of knowledge products and tools, including case studies, but also importantly, it has 2 very important market sizing and business case tools that are Excel-based spreadsheets that are designed for banks to actually go in, plug in your own cost data. It will give you market sizing, it'll give you the potential by segment, and that's a very important complement to your business strategy team to go in and actually understand how big this market is and where can we go for it. That's an example of one of the tools that's probably the most practical that's in there, and there's a range of other kind of best practices to what is going on globally, so you can get up to speed and pick up some ideas. So that's on the Wi-Fi Secretariat website.
What is the most useful technical support that you got in implementation of Wi-Fi code?
Actually, at the...
Sorry for so direct question, you see. Sorry for such a direct question, yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Initially, we had to formulate the national definition for women-led businesses. So we started that work at the beginning of 2023. So after having a series of discussions with so many stakeholders, we were able to formulate the national definition for women-led business. And central bank also issued a circular to all the banks and non-banks on following that national definition in August 2024. So based on that, we took the initiatives to implement the V-Finance Code. And through this journey, we were supported by the ADB through a local consultancy firm, because it's a very comprehensive, complicated task and taking more time. So then there are more to go for the full implementation of the V-Finance Code, and the ADB is still with us for supporting for this task. So I take this opportunity to thank ADB for supporting all the way for implementing this V-Finance Code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the last question of the session, you see, today's session, and that goes to Shazib Ali, to you, that you have been, you see, quite kind to provide that support to Sri Lanka. So what is for Pakistan here? Those 20 who have signed this morning, and the rest, I'm sure, will also be signing shortly. So what is from the ADB in terms of the support in V-Finance Code implementation?
Okay. I would start for what we have done with other countries. Actually, one is the training need assessment study, and then there's an in-depth study for specific financial service providers who have signed the V-Finance Code. Then, in addition to that, the additional thing is that we bring in relevant consultants who have international and local experience, whether that be national or international consultant. And based on these 3, you can say, pillars, or these 3 driving factors, then we come up with a country-specific plan. So in case of Pakistan, as you have, the good thing about it right now is that we have already just now finished, and we are in a post-program framework for our Women Inclusive Finance program. And we have an active grant, AD of 13, which is already available, and for which you are one of the implementing partners. And as Inez was also discussing, we have SMEDA, which is SME Development Authority, that is there. Then we have the other financial sector regulator that is there. So we can come up with a very comprehensive approach. And third thing is, we have already, as we have discussed with you, we are already discussing some future programs which could again additionally support financing and women financing and this finance code. So based on similar strategy, what we can do training needs assessment, we can do specific, we can actually make work groups based on our experiences and case studies internationally. And then, for example, we have also supported certain countries in terms of embedding women gender disaggregated data into their MIS systems, and how you can develop more modern and useful, more than modern, I think more useful customer value proposition for women based on that data and based on the policy framework which we have worked on. So we can actually, based on broad estimation or a ballpark number, we have about 10, we can support at least 10 financial service providers based on their needs, and working on that similar framework which I've already mentioned to you. So these are some highlights what we can do for financial services provider and other stakeholders in the country.
Thank you very much. And I have just been reminded by FICA that we are running short of time, so I'm sorry that I would not be able to take a question from the floor. But what I'll do is that I'll request each panelist in just 30 seconds, just one sentence that what is your message for the floor here? So again, starting from on the same pattern from Joseph.
I think two important things. One thing is, it should be considered by the commercial banks as something which is a very commercially viable and product or thing which people should believe in lending to women. One, in terms of intention. Second, something which would be financially and viable and profitable for the institution.
Enes.
To start, to determine the business case. Only if you do a back of the envelope business case will you get the funding from senior management to then go and do your own feasibility study. So that's number one. Number two is really focus on the data. All our banks that have done this well, when they look back, if there's something they would have done in the beginning, right from the beginning, it's really getting that data. Without the data, you cannot prove you're making money on this market. And believe me, it is profitable. We have lots of data now from our members that we aggregate, and the data shows this is a very profitable market. Because you think about a woman, she's not just an entrepreneur, she's also the chief purchasing officer in her household. So she's the gateway to a lot of other products. And you add that data to the SME data, to her business data, and you've got a very viable customer. Thank you.
Last piece of advice, Peruka, from your side.
Actually, having the disaggregated is very important for take national policy decisions for the betterment of the country, government, and as well as to empower the women entrepreneurs economically and socially as well, and also to introduce, implement new programs, financial support, financial and non-financial programs to support access to finance of women. And I think it's important for researchers as well to introduce new products for the betterment of the women entrepreneurs. So I think this is a good initiative for the national endeavor on the journey of going on the economic development. So
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in appreciating such a strong panel for giving such good insights.
Thank you, everybody. And can we have a round of applause for Samar Sahab for moderating this session? Thank you, sir. So thank you for this session where we learned where different countries are on their journey of Finance Code adoption, what steps they've been taking so far to achieve success, and how ADB is helping them to build their capacity. We now shift from policy dialogues to powerful personal stories. In our next session, Women Entrepreneur Showcase. Here we have two inspiring women entrepreneurs who will share their journeys, challenges, and successes so we can learn from their voices and understand how we need to center our policies for improving women's access to financing. For this, I would like to invite Ms. Shagufta Parveen, owner of Makey, a premium hair care company with distribution at major retail outlets in Karachi, and Ms. Afifa Khalid, CEO of Fresh and Roshan, which supplies high-quality fruits and vegetables to businesses and customers at their doorsteps. Welcome. This session will be moderated by Ms. Zainab Saeed, gender and financial inclusion expert at ADB. Zainab comes with 17 years of experience in shaping inclusive finance ecosystems and is currently leading technical assistance in gender-focused financial sector reforms in Pakistan and Uzbekistan, and she previously worked at Kash Foundation and Karandas, Pakistan. Over to you, Zainab.
Thank you so much, Faika. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Everyone in the back also, assalamu alaikum. We're going to have a very important and a very interesting conversation with our two entrepreneurs here. So thank you, Faika, for the introductions. Just some things that I want to add to these introductions since I've had the pleasure of speaking to these lovely ladies in the morning. So Afifa actually not only runs this business. You want me to come in the middle? You want to come here? Yeah? Does that work? Yes. Just some minor shifting. Is this working? Hello, yes it is. So Afifa not only runs her own business, but what was very interesting about Afifa's sort of journey is that she had an established business that she entered, and she pivoted it completely. And the part of the business that she runs is her own, and she's pivoted it, and she'll talk more about it. So this is something very, very interesting. So thank you so much again, Afifa, for being with us. And of course, Shagufta is our stellar entrepreneur. She has a fire-packed story that she will be sharing with us through this. But Shagufta actually runs a small business where she does cosmetics and hair care, and she's mentioned the hair dye about 10 times since she's met me. So I think I'm going to be her new customer. So just to kind of start, I think I'm just going to get a little back. Yeah. Just to start, I think I'll ask both of you the same question, and I'll start with you, Afifa. So if you could talk about some of the major milestones that you've had in your business consolidation and business growth, and then I'll ask the same question to you. Yep.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. I'll briefly introduce my business. So basically, I belong to family where we used to, we had a business since 1980s, 1980s of fresh fruits and vegetable exports. So when I joined in 2020, after completing my education, I came to my father's office and I sat there for a couple of weeks and realized that I was not needed there. It was all established and I was just filling a space over there. So at that time, my parents made me sit and they told me this, that see, you have the privilege of having this platform. So you have the roots, make your own branches, make your own ecosystem, and start your own thing. And that is when I registered my own business, and it's called Fresh and Roshan. So I would say that the first milestone was getting out of my comfort zone, registering my own business, and going through the entire process of documentation, understanding the banking system, how FPR registrations and stuff works, opening my own business account, starting to create my own SOPs and company policies, all of this in a written form. That I would consider as my first milestone, followed by, since it's a post-harvest management work, so I had to connect from farmers to consumers. So I started networking and I started making linkages with producers, farmers, and as well as in the upstream with the retailers and direct consumers through e-commerce platforms. So we managed to get in touch with one of the biggest supermarkets in Karachi, and then a few e-commerce platforms that sell fresh fruits and vegetables, and they took us on board. Thirdly, I would say that once I was linked into the network from production to the consumption, we started introducing new products like value-added products, cut fruits and pre-cut vegetables, ready-to-cook vegetables. And so we diversified our product range. Now, currently, the thing that we are working on is environment-friendly practices. And because when I started, my biggest concern was that how am I going to remain eco-friendly while dealing with all the food waste and plastic, single plastic packaging that is needed in consumer packaging. So right now, we are working on sustainable solutions. It's in R&D phase, and we have our own composting. We are working on banana leaves, packaging from banana leaves and rice husk. So yeah, that's a basic overview.
Those are a lot of milestones. Thank you so much for sharing them. And she's being a bit modest. So all of you in the audience, I'm sure you've used Food Panda, you've used Crave Mart, and you know what Sparks is. That's where her vegetables are actually sort of stocked. So she's like a big retailer in that sense. And I think one of the things that was very interesting is that Afifa was sharing with me that she started her own shop also. But then she realized that this is a market where you build off of the networks that exist. And so, you know, she closed that shop and she thought that she would leverage on the networks that already exist. And that has been, you know, a key USP for her. शगुफ्ता, हम बात अब आपकी तरफ लेके आते हैं और आपसे यही सवाल पूछेंगे कि आपके मेजर माइलस्टोन्स क्या रहे हैं आपकी बिजनेस में, आपको क्या सक्सेसेस नज़र आती हैं जब आप अपनी पूरी जर्नी को देखती हैं. So Shagufta has been running her business for the past 20 years. So, you know, she will walk us, past 10 years, and Afifa has been running for the past 5 years. So if you can, Shagufta, please share कि आपके क्या major milestones रहे हैं.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shagufta. और मैं पाकिस्तान में ये कॉस्मेटिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करती हूँ. लोकल बिज़नेस मेरा है और मेरा माइलस्टोन तो यही है कि मैंने बहुत मुश्किल हालात में अपना बिज़नेस स्टार्ट किया पहला, और उसके बाद मैंने अपनी चीज़ों को थोड़ा करके आगे लेके चली और मैंने पहला कस्टमर ढूंढा. मैंने अपनी पहला मैंने ऑर्डर पूरा किया. उसके बाद मैंने बड़े बायर ढूंढे लाइक इम्तियाज़, चेज़अप, चेज़ वैल्यू, और मैंने उनसे बिग ऑर्डर्स लेकर अपने ऑर्डर्स पूरे किए. उसके बाद फिर मैंने पहले मैं इंपोर्ट करती थी छोटे पैमाने पर छोटी छोटी सी चीज़ें. उसके बाद फिर हमने अपना रॉ मटेरियल इंपोर्ट करना स्टार्ट किया और अपनी मशीनरीज़ यहाँ लगाई मैंने ख़ुद, और इस सारी चीज़ों से मेरे बिज़नेस को तरक्की मिली. तो आई थिंक ये मेरा माइलस्टोन है.
थैंक यू सो मच. सो शगुफ्ता मुझे ये भी बता रही थी पहले आप पहली इंसान हैं अपनी फैमिली में जिन्होंने
मतलब मुझे कोई शौक़ नहीं था बिज़नेस करने का, ना ही मेरा कोई एक्सपीरियंस था. मैं सडनली बस आ गई बिज़नेस में. कुछ घरेलू मसाइल थे जिसकी वजह से, और मैंने बिज़नेस करते करते ही बिज़नेस सीखा है. मतलब मुझे उसका कुछ ABC भी नहीं पता थी. और
So ये बहुत बड़ा माइलस्टोन है कि शी इज़ द फर्स्ट पर्सन इन हर ओन बिजनेस, इन हर होल फैमिली जिन्होंने अपना बिजनेस शुरू किया, और अब इनका बिजनेस इतना बड़ा है कि ये जो है इम्तियाज़ में स्टॉक करती हैं और इम्तियाज़ ऑल ओवर द कंट्री ये स्टॉक करती हैं. सो आपको इसके ऊपर बहुत मुबारक भी हो, एंड यू नो कंग्रेचुलेशंस ऑन दिस. सो आई विल मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, एंड अफीफा अगेन आई विल स्टार्ट विद यू. सो मेरा अगला सवाल जो है वो ये है कि व्हाट वर द काइंड ऑफ एक्सटर्नल एंड इंटरनल रिसोर्सेज दैट you know felt were most resourceful or were most supportive to your entrepreneurial journey? So, you know, this could be technical know-how, this could be trainings, this could be funding, this could be any kind of, you know, financial or non-financial support. Since in the last panel we heard from our esteemed panelists about non-financial support and how important that is. So if you could just sort of walk us through what is the most beneficial kind of support that you have been able to garner, which has really helped you in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. I would like to start with a small memory from my childhood. I remember I was fond of taking autographs from influential people. So I had this my new diary autograph book, and I went to my father to take his, I wanted him to sign the first page for me. And instead of just signing it, he wrote these verses from Allama Iqbal. सबक फिर पर सदाकत का, अदालत का, शुजाअत का, दिया जाएगा तुझसे काम दुनिया की इमामत का. So at that time I had no idea what it meant, but I memorized it anyway. And just to realize it now, that those were the principles that were taught to me at my home by my mother, by my father, around me, in my workplace, and still today I go back to those 3 principles of truth, courage, and justice that leads to leadership. And so, yeah, so family support is number 1. Then I would say that I used to keep looking for different training sessions that were conducted by ITC, GRASP, SMEDA, different organizations, and I would just go and participate there. They were related to, from technical aspects as well as from soft skills. I just went there and attended those sections. I would register them online. Most of them were subsidized and some of them were paid, but I just did not stop because I wanted to learn. So yeah, that was very helpful. Then again, last year when we were scaling up, I needed some financial help, and I went to my bank, Habib Metro Bank, and they guided me towards this funding facility for women refinance scheme, and I managed to get my loan from there. That helped me speed up my growth. So yeah, I think these were the main factors that I can say that helped me in growth.
Since we are talking about refinance and financing entrepreneurs, can you give us a little more detail about your loan itself, the loan that you got?
Yeah, so it was a women refinance scheme in which I applied, and since my documentations were all sorted beforehand, so the process was smooth, and the bank helped me a lot. I applied for 5 million, and I got the loan. It's I think on 5% markup, and yeah, so I think that, it basically helped me speed up my process.
Great, thank you. So I think, Afifa, what you're saying is really, really pertinent again for this conversation. We heard the experts talk about how it's financial services are very, very important, but the non-financial piece is also extremely important. And from what Afifa is telling us, you know, it's not just the access to finance, which has of course been very helpful. She's been able to expand her business, but what's really also helped her is all these trainings and all these other opportunities for learning, you know, from peers or learning from you know, experts that have been very helpful. So, you know, again, honing in the point that was being made in the earlier panel by, you know, our panelists from abroad, that it's very important for banks. And so for the FSP sitting in the audience, it's very important to club financial and non-financial services. यही सवाल शगुफ्ता अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं कि आपको सबसे ज़्यादा क्या चीज़ सपोर्टिव रही है आपकी जर्नी में, क्या ऐसी सपोर्ट थी जिसने आपकी सबसे ज़्यादा मदद की है अपनी जर्नी को आगे लेके जाकर?
सबसे पहले तो मुझे फैमिली की सपोर्ट थी. अगर फैमिली की सपोर्ट न होती तो मैं ये सब कर ही नहीं पाती. और सेकंड ये है कि जब मैंने अपनी प्रोडक्ट, मैं थोड़ा सा आप लोगों का टाइम लेना चाहूँगी, थोड़ी डिटेल बताना चाहती हूँ. तो जब मैंने बिज़नेस स्टार्ट किया तो मेरे इन लॉज जो हैं वो हांगकांग चाइना में रहते हैं. उन्होंने मुझे कुछ छोटी छोटी प्रोडक्ट्स मतलब लाइक हेयर कलर्स, शैम्पू, साशे मुझे भेजे कि आप पाकिस्तान में इसको सेल करें. तो अब मैं अपनी चीज़ें लेकर बैठी हुई हूँ और कोई बायर नहीं है, कोई मुझसे ख़रीदना नहीं चाहता कि क्यों, वाई, आपकी प्रोडक्ट क्यों लें हम. बिल्कुल न्यू प्रोडक्ट थी. और तो अब मैं सोच रही थी क्या करूं. फिर मैं एक बार इम्तियाज़ सुपर स्टोर के ऑफिस गई. मैंने कहा मुझे अपनी प्रोडक्ट यहाँ पे ना इन करवानी है. तो उन्होंने कहा कि उन्होंने मुझे अंदर ही नहीं जाने दिया. 3 दिन तक मैं वहाँ चक्कर लगाती रही, मुझे अंदर जाने ही नहीं दिया. उसके बाद मैंने हिम्मत नहीं हारी. एक बार मैं चली गई बहादुराबाद ब्रांच पे. तो वहाँ पे जब मैं गई तो वहाँ मैंने मालूमात की. तो वहाँ इम्तियाज़ साहब होते हैं जो इम्तियाज़ के ऑनर हैं ख़ुद. उनको मैंने बोला मुझे अपनी प्रोडक्ट रखनी है. तो उन्होंने मुझे बड़े हंसी से देखा, मुझे देख के हंसे और कहते हैं क्या कर सकती हो तुम, तो कुछ कर ही नहीं सकती, कैसे करोगी, ये तो बहुत बड़ा काम है. मैंने कहा सर मुझे करना है ना. तो उन्होंने कहा 1 CR मतलब 1 करोड़ हम लोग लेते हैं इनिशियल चार्जेस. मैंने कहा सर मेरे पास तो नहीं है. तो उन्होंने कहा एक टास्क देता हूँ, तुम एक स्टॉल लगाओ बाहर और आप ना मुझे अपनी प्रोडक्ट सेल करके दिखाओ कि किस तरह आपके अंदर कितनी पोटेंशियल है. मैंने कहा ठीक है. मैं उस वक्त बच्चे भी मेरे बहुत छोटे थे. मैंने एक स्टॉल लिया और मैंने अपने साथ 2 लड़कियां मतलब BA ली और मैं सुबह 11 बजे से लेके रात 11 बजे तक स्टॉल पे मतलब होती थी और मैं अपनी प्रोडक्ट सेल करती थी. पहले दिन मेरा एक साशे सेल हुआ, मैं बहुत खुश. उसके बाद आहिस्ता हम लोग कस्टमर को गाइड करते थे कि ये नई चीज़ है. मतलब हेयर कलर शैम्पू फ़र्स्ट टाइम मैं लेके आई थी पाकिस्तान में. उस वक्त इतनी अवेयरनेस नहीं थी कस्टमर को. तो बस तकरीबन 20 दिन बाद मेरी 20,000 की सेल हुई। और फिर मैंने जाके कहा कि अब आप मेरी प्रोडक्ट एंड करें ना, क्योंकि और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह उन्होंने मुझे पहली बार 2 कार्टन्स का ऑर्डर दिया और मेरा स्टॉक पहली बार इम्तियाज़ सुपरमार्केट पे गया। और उस वक्त मेरे पास कोई रिसोर्सेज नहीं थे कि मैं मतलब कोई ऐसी वैन नहीं थी कि मैं अपने स्टॉक वहाँ पहुँचाऊँ, तो मैंने ऑटो में अपना स्टॉक पहुँचाया था। और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह आज पूरे पाकिस्तान के जितने भी बड़े LMTs हैं वहाँ मेरी प्रोडक्ट जाती है।
And the rest, as they say, is history. So I think platform की आप बात करिए कि वो platform आपको जो मिला, that was possibly the best support. And I think a lot of the conversation जब हम women entrepreneurs की बात करते हैं, वो access to markets और access to these platforms होते हैं। चाहे हम e-commerce की बात कर रहे हों, जैसे our colleague from Sri Lanka was talking about that platform, which is an e-commerce platform, or if we talk about other access to market initiatives, that we're all trying to work. So that access to market was very, very supportive. Thank you. So we're a bit short on time, so we're going to quickly go over 2 questions. I'll clump them together. So agar hum, Afifa, if I ask you, what were the major obstacles and barriers, and also what is the kind of support that a young entrepreneur like you would need? And so we have all ecosystem players here. We have the regulators, we have microfinance banks, we have the banks, we have different players in the audience. So what are the major barriers, and then what kind of support does an entrepreneur like you require from all of these ecosystem players?
I would say one of the biggest hurdle was hesitation that I had in myself. Despite being educated and being aware of the system, how the system works, I was very hesitant going to a bank and interacting with the staff, because somehow it was just in my mind that it's something that I cannot do, or something that I cannot understand. So that's one thing I would like to highlight, that all the institutions, be it ADB or SPP, there should be more workshops on college and university levels for girls and boys both, because that is the time when students, when they graduate, they should be aware of basic financial tools and should have basic financial literacy, so that when they enter the job market, they are aware of these things and they don't have to learn from the scratch or be just stay behind because they are reluctant to go and take their first step. And so yeah, that is one thing that I would like to request everyone, because I have learned a lot from training sessions and workshops, and I would really appreciate if there would be more workshops in schools and universities where they can increase financial literacy in young students.
Thank you so much, Afifa. I think this really also hits home, and one of the things that the National Financial Inclusion Strategy also has is financial education and entrepreneurial education. I think there is an entire financial literacy month that was recently celebrated by the State Bank of Pakistan, and the State Bank of Pakistan has been working with different players to try and introduce a curriculum on entrepreneurship and financial education through NIBAF and through other channels. So that's very important. I think it's happening, but we need to speed it up. So I think that's very important. यही सवाल से गुफ्ता अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं कि क्या सबसे बड़ी रुकावट थी आपकी इस जर्नी में एंटरप्रेन्योर बनने की और अच्छा बिजनेस चलाने की, और उसके साथ साथ आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या चीज़ है जो सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है आप जैसे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स की सपोर्ट के लिए?
सबसे बड़ी जो मुश्किल थी वो थी फाइनेंशियल्स, क्योंकि जितनी भी हमारे बायर हैं वो हमसे क्रेडिट पे स्टॉक लेते हैं, और फिर मुझे आगे स्टॉक बनाना भी होता था, तो उसके लिए मुझे बहुत फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम्स आई। इवन कि मैंने जब अपनी मशीनें लगाई और जब मैंने अपने बिज़नेस को बढ़ाया तो मैंने अपनी कुछ चीज़ें सेल की ना, लाइक एक प्लॉट था और कुछ गोल्ड था, तो इसी वजह से फिर मैंने अभी ये फाइनेंशियल्स ली है अल्फलाह बैंक से। मैं 8 साल से अल्फलाह बैंक के साथ अपना बिज़नेस कर रही हूँ, और मैंने 3 मिलियन लिए हैं और बहुत ईजी मुझे लोन मिल गया। लेकिन मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि अगर दूसरी ख़वातीन आना चाहती हैं, बिज़नेस में करना चाहती हैं, तो उनके लिए थोड़े से ये जो डॉक्यूमेंटेशंस वाले जो हैं उनको थोड़ा सा इजी किया जाए, क्योंकि एक तो वुमेन्स के पास कुछ होता नहीं है कि मॉर्गेज करें, और दूसरे डॉक्यूमेंटेशंस इतनी ज़्यादा हैं कि वो थोड़े सा उनको हर्डल्स आते हैं। तो मेरा यही है कि मैं चाहती हूँ कि थोड़ा सा इसको इजी किया जाए, और बस
Great. So I think again आपने जो बात की वो बहुत सुबह से बात हो रही है कि access to finance जो है वो बहुत कम है ख़वातीन के लिए, but ना सिर्फ ये कि access to finance कम इसलिए कि ख़वातीन नहीं है, but इसलिए भी क्योंकि जो process है access to finance ख़वातीन को देने का वो बहुत मुश्किल है, या उसकी documentation बहुत जो है वो मुश्किल है. So हम जैसे I think शौसफ साहब ने पहले बात भी की कि ADB will be introducing a package for FSPs under the We Finance TA support, where we will work with the FSPs to help them design women-centric processes and women-centric methodologies for doing access to finance. And that really is the key, and that's what's worked in most markets. So आपकी suggestion बहुत अच्छी है और suggestion को
अच्छा,
हम आगे
मुझे
लेके
भी नहीं मालूम था कि वेमेंस के लिए लोन जो है प्रोवाइड है. मैंने 1-2 सेशन ज्वाइन किए स्टेट बैंक से, तो वहाँ पे मुझे सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन मिली और मुझे पता चला कि इस तरह वुमेंस के लिए कम मार्कअप में लोन है, तो क्योंकि वुमेंस को पता ही नहीं है, अवेयरनेस ही नहीं है.
I think ये भी बहुत एक important point है. So I think you've really hit the nail on the head that awareness नहीं है. Women don't know what services are available, and we all know that women have lower financial literacy levels. We all know जैसे आबिद साहब ने हमें सुबह में पूरा एक obstacles का course दिखाया था. We all know that women are worse off in multiple dimensions. So just making the products is also, of course, a very important step, but creating awareness around those products is also very important. So thank you so much, Shagufta. I'm just going to ask you guys for 1 minute, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs here? The people in the front row are not our young entrepreneurs, but we have some at the back. So if one small, one-liner, Afifa, somebody starting out, what advice would you have for them?
I would say just start. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect situations, because that would never come. You start and resources grow with your experience and exposure. So just start and keep documenting everything from the first day.
I think that's very, very important. Thank you. Shagufta, एक लाइन में क्या advice देंगी young entrepreneurs को, आपके जैसी young?
कि छोटी से स्टार्ट करें, शुरुआत करें, घबराएं ना, हिम्मत करें और फिर देखें. वही वाली एक मिसाल है, बल्कि शेर है कि उठ बांध कमर क्या डरता है, फिर देख खुदा क्या करता है. अल्लाह ताला आपकी हेल्प करेंगे.
क्या बात की आपने, क्या बात की आपने. So with that, we'll end this panel. Start small, keep at it. There's no such thing as the right time for FSPs and for entrepreneurs. So the time is always right. Please start focusing on women's inclusive finance. And that's just what we wanted. So thank you so much, Afifa. Thank you so much, Shagufta. It was a pleasure meeting you and having you on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shagufta, Ms. Afifa, and Ms. Zainab for moderating this session. Thank you to our entrepreneurs for sharing their stories. They've truly inspired us, and I think everybody felt your passion. It was palpable. आगे जाने से पहले जो ख़वातीन, जो young entrepreneurs हमें जिन्होंने ज्वाइन किया है थट्टा से, सिंध के डिफरेंट इलाकों से, मैं उनका तहे दिल से शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ. मैं उनकी शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ. थैंक यू सो मच कि आप इतना सफ़र करके हमारे इवेंट में शामिल हुई, और ये इवेंट आपके लिए ही है, और ये हमारा फोकस यही है कि आप जैसी ख़वातीन को हम मज़ीद एम्पावर कर सकें. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर जॉइनिंग अस. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move towards our last panel discussion, which brings together leading champions from the banking industry who are shaping the future of women's financial inclusion in Pakistan as code signatories. Allow me to introduce our distinguished panel. First, we are joined by Mr. Zafar Masood, President, Bank of Punjab, which is the second largest public sector bank in the country. He is a seasoned banker with 27 years of experience and focus on development finance, and has previously worked in Barclays Bank and Citibank, Dubai Islamic Bank, and American Express Bank. Our second panelist is Mr. Nasir Salim, President and CEO, HPL Bank. Mr. Nasir is a seasoned banker with 36 years of banking experience in USA, Middle East, and Pakistan. He has been associated with HPL since 2017 and is a member of the Executive Committee of Pakistan Banks Association. Our third panelist is Mr. Irfan Siddiqui, founding president and CEO of Mizan Bank since 1997. His distinguished career includes several key roles such as CEO Al Mizan Investment Bank Limited and General Manager at Pakistan Kuwait Investment Company, amongst others. Our fourth panelist is Mr. Haris Mahmood, President, Mobilink Microfinance Bank Limited. Mr. Haris is a seasoned senior executive with over 22 years of extensive experience in banking. Before banking, he also was the CEO of the Universal Services Fund at the Ministry of IT and Telecom, where he led transformative projects for expanding telecommunications across the nation. This panel will be moderated by Mr. Andrew McCartney, Senior Financial Sector Economist, Asian Development Bank, who works on large financial sector-based transformations related to MSME, gender, and inclusive finance. Over to you, Mr. Andrew.
Great. Many thanks. Well, I must say, I think from my perspective, today is especially special, and in many ways is a culmination of nearly 3-4 years of work that we, ADB, been working closely with State Bank and other stakeholders through our Women Inclusive Finance program, which I co-lead with Shahzab. So it's a real honor to be here, and it's also great to be the moderator for last but definitely not least, the final panel before lunch. We've heard today from some of the policymakers, we've heard from the international experts, we've also heard from the women entrepreneurs themselves. But now is the chance to hear from the banks, the ones that are actually now going to have to do the hard work to actually meet their commitments, whether it be from the data and reporting side, or more broadly their commitments to support women entrepreneurship more broadly. And so the purpose of this panel, with our esteemed guests on it, is to really understand really what's motivating them to join the code, what it means for them from a strategy perspective, and also, I think, to ask the question, what's going to change? What's coming next? Is this just a signature and we'll all go home? Or is something actually going to change here that's actually going to make a difference? And that's what I want to challenge these panelists today around. And I know we're a little bit short on time, so if we can get any questions from the audience, we will. Otherwise, we'll plow on with 2 or 3 questions to the CEOs. I guess my first question, and this will be to Mr. Zafar Masood from BOP, would be around, you've signed the code now. Why is this important to you as a bank from a strategy perspective? And how do you see BOP's role, given the role you've already played in the SME space, clearly as one of the market leaders? What role do you think you'll play in driving the code forward? Over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, it's indeed, as you said, it's not just a big day for you, it's a big day for all of us. This is one, big elephant in the room that we need to tackle for promoting financial inclusion in Pakistan. I don't have to get into the details or repeating what we've seen in the morning. It's very obvious, and just one statistic I would still like to repeat is the overall impact of this on the GDP. And the bottom line of the banks is actually directly correlated with the GDP of the country. If you look at the percentage relationship is actually 1-to-1 in Pakistan. In comparison to the region, it's 0.5-to-1. So therefore, it's much more important for us that the financial inclusion of women, which is 45% of the total population, comes through so that the economy grow, the GDP grow, and the banks would grow as well. It's a long-term proposition, but we have to start, and this is the first step in that direction. Andrew, I'll just take the advantage of my presence on the stage right now and share with everybody that we are so motivated with what the code could bring to the table that we've decided as Pakistan Banks Association to sign the code as well. So we'll be signing the code later on. Right after this, the CEO of PBA will be coming back. He had left, but he's now coming back to sign the code. Look, the three things where I personally think that BOP can take the maximum benefit out of the whole thing. One is the fact that, the overall learning that the code would bring in terms of, how has the countries have achieved that on the policy side, and that's where I thought that PBA would take a lead and see what are those policies which we need to take up with the government and the central bank to promote financial inclusion at a macro level. And on the micro level, at the institutional level like Bank of Punjab, we would be very keen to understand how the other institutions like NatWest and the bank in Australia, I'm forgetting the name, it's Westpac. Yeah, they have done some phenomenal work in this space, and we would like to learn from them through the code of what we can do in terms of structuring and offering those products. And last but not the least is obviously, look, when you talk about frontier financing, it is frontier financing, let's face it. It is something which is out of the ordinary. It is priority financing, but it is something which is tough financing for a host of reasons which we can talk about later if you like. But it's very important to understand that for frontier financing cannot take off until and unless there is an explicit engagement of the institutions like yourselves, World Bank, and the governments, whether it's sovereign or sub-sovereign like the Government of Punjab. And I think it's very important that we get engaged with you, and we are meeting up on Wednesday, Andrew. I would like to talk about specifics of what facility we can do so that we can increase not just the account opening, but going beyond and lending, which is the financial entrepreneurship piece. Look, Bank of Punjab has a unique advantage in comparison to my other colleagues. Being a public sector organization, we have the first access to the Government of Punjab support. But the idea is, and the space is so large, that Bank of Punjab on their part would like to now act as a program manager, as we did in the case of electronic warehouse receipt, and then invite all the banks to come through and participate in all the government programs, so that, and every government program, by the way, there is a component of women quota. We would like to pursue this at a much larger scale with all the banks. This is on our part as a contribution towards, the codes initiative, and we'll be happy to talk to you and take it on from there. Thank you.
Fantastic. So you heard it here, folks. We've got the Banking Association now signing up, and we've also got a commitment to develop lending proposition for women, learning from international best practice. And also, there's an offer on the table for BOP to act, if you like, almost as a women's apex platform to actually, for all banks, through a state bank, to capture this market.
And the Government of Punjab, because we happen to be owned majority by the Government of Punjab, so we, by default, has more stronger relationship with them. But the template is very much there, and we would like to offer this. We'll get engaged on this. Shozab will also be there, you will be there, and Mariam will be there as well. We'll get engaged with this and talk specifics on how we can turn it into a program where the Government of Punjab and yourselves could actually offer this to the entire industry. Just to give you one statistic, I don't like to blow my trumpet all the time. I do it quite often. I know Nasir is laughing, but last year, I think 50 to 60,000 women entrepreneurship loans were done. 30,000 of them were done by BOP alone. This 2024 I'm talking about. Only because, and this is my trumpet that I was blowing, but the fact is that we had a big advantage of the Government of Punjab programs on agriculture and SME. I would like this to open up to everybody. Trust me, I'll be the happiest man if I'm only 3,000 and Nasir and Irfan Bhai are 30,000 each. I'll be happy to be at 3,000 only. It's fine, really.
Great.
इस पे ताली बजा सकते हैं यार.
Thank you. Fantastic. Well, Nasser, you heard the challenge. The gauntlet has been thrown down on, so obviously from an HBL perspective, you've been working in the women banking space for a number of years. In many ways, you're seen as one of the great pioneers, if not the pioneer in this market. What does the signing of this code mean to you and your role in the code?
So thank you for that, Andrew. I think, this is really, as you said, one more step in the journey that we have. We've been part of the Women's Alliance now for a number of years, very closely associated. We also have signed up to the United Nations Women's Empowerment Program. We are also signatories, while it's slightly unrelated, to net zero. So from a carbon footprint perspective, we're 3 years into that journey. So really sustainability, and I think women inclusion, diversity has always been a cornerstone. If you notice, the first to sign up on the code is HBL, microfinance. And 33% of all of their extensions or their clients are really to females. On the HBL side, while we're the main bank, last year, we did a relatively small number, 405 of women entrepreneurs new were onboarded just last year, but about 2.8 billion, was extended out. So I think the segment that we're now talking about a lot is around the MSME segments and the smaller women entrepreneurs. I think we have a good handle in terms of the larger sized women entrepreneurs. And really that's going to be the focus. I think the code is important for us to have a common language and take that forward. And I think the key that Zafar also touched upon, and coincidentally, Zafar and I go back, 3.5 decades? So this kind of banter always continues between us. And that's what happens when you have 35 years of a friendship that is there. So clearly, as Zafar pointed out, we're not looking at HBL, we're not looking at BOP, we're not looking at Mizan, we're looking at Pakistan. When I look at the agri sector, for example, which is a large employer of the females, as well as some of the downstream industries that it supports. HBL from a asset acquisition on this is the largest portfolio at this time. Number of customers, BOP through digital and through Government of Punjab have obviously taken last year a big leap there. But the reality is that all banks combined constitute about less than 90% of the pie. So all of us really need to now look at that greater good. So we're eagerly looking forward to this collaborative alliance to take it forward, because this is in the national interest. And I think the comfort that the Government of Punjab is extending in terms of an insurance wrap, gives a lot of the banks, that comfort to move into a segment where, frankly, while we may have certain expertise through the micro bank and ourselves, the rest of the banks may not be that comfortable. Also, partnership is not just here. We're a large financer of Akhuwat. We just signed 3.5 billion, so it's public knowledge, with Kash Foundation, where we're funding them. In addition, we've signed up, with a multilateral for 75 million disbursement in 3 years for climate resilience, and SDG 5, which is around the empowerment piece. So through this, we have dual objectives, because I was at the London Climate Action Forum about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and really it's no longer about hitting one SDG. It is about how do you embed this diversity piece in everything that you do. So I think it's a call to action. The code gives us a common language. The code gives multilaterals, as Zafar said, the confidence to invest, because then the numbers are consistent, they're real, they're validated by State Bank, and I think that allows us to take things forward.
Fantastic. Great. And I'm sure HBL will continue to play that pioneering role going forward. So Irfan, I mean, from a Mizan is an Islamic bank, as we know, and being Islamic, clearly you have a different relationship with assets and with clients.
Yeah.
Could you talk through what this code means to Mizan and what you've also learned from an Islamic banking perspective with women?
I think I will start off from a comment of Nasir that it's not about individual banks, it's about the whole banking sector, and I'm glad PBA is coming as a signatory as well. I think Pakistan, obviously, there are a lot of low-hanging fruits. You know, when you look at ratios in terms of whether it's SME or agri or women financing, it's a very low level. And when you see countries which are neighboring countries as well, or in the little bit away as well, like Thailand or Malaysia, Singapore, and you see women entrepreneurs, you know, neck to neck with their men counterpart. So there's no reason why women should not be able to do that. And these two young ladies who were on the stage, Afifa and the other one, I'm sure, you know, they started, sitting there very small. And I'm sure all the banks would be willing to help and make their life comfortable in terms of access to finance. So there's a lot to be done, and obviously, like Zafar mentioned, if GDP increases, our deposit base increases, our business increases, our trade finance increases. So, you know, we've tested all the big boys, so to say. I mean, when you finance multinationals or top companies within Pakistan. So this segment would really bring in value in a bank's balance sheet going forward, because you've done enough of those, and obviously there's, you know, the reliance on that has to be now balanced with smaller as well. But obviously, you know, it's easier said than done. You know, you have to, at the end of the day, bank is made up of deposits from customers, and you have to take care of that deposit in terms of prudence. So obviously, whatever we do has to make that financial sense of recoverability. And generally, you know, you hear about that women are better in terms of returning the money than people like Nasir and me, right? So hopefully, I think we should find a lot more entrepreneurs like Afifa and her colleague and move forward. In terms of your query about Islamic side, you know, there is a very clear preference in Pakistan, especially amongst SMEs, and I would say more especially among women SMEs and women entrepreneurs to get into the Islamic mode of finance. And that's not just been seen at Mizan level. I think even at HBL, at their Islamic branches, Islamic windows, and all over. I was, today you were telling me that you're also going into Islamic. So I think Islamic mode of financing will bring customers, women customers to the banking sector. And it will probably make them more comfortable, whether they go with an Islamic bank, dedicated Islamic bank, or with conventional bank windows as well.
Great.
Thank you.
So, and certainly, I mean, the whole Islamic banking proposition is something, a lot of the research shows, particularly in rural areas and certain provinces, there is a very high propensity for it, particularly amongst the women.
Yeah. No, obviously you were right. You know, when we open branches in far-flung areas and areas where, you know, quite frankly, the first time I would hear the name, you open the branch without advertising, people just pour in. So you know, people are keen on doing Islamic finance, and I think we should all capitalize on that.
Great, thank you. Harris, so you know, you're the CEO of one of the most successful microfinance banks in Pakistan. You're obviously already doing a lot of work with women within your portfolio. What does joining the code mean for an organization like yourself, a microfinance bank?
Thank you, Anthony, for having me over here. You know, as all my esteemed panelists also mentioned, that it's more of a matter of a national interest and national agenda putting it together, and that's why we're part of it. because I don't believe that, if 45% of the population of Pakistan is not included in the financial inclusion, that as a country we can go ahead. So we have to make them exclusive in terms of either the bank accounts or giving access to credit. As far as the mobilizing bank is concerned, it's totally aligned with our MSME strategy of women entrepreneurship, where we strongly feel that until unless women entrepreneurs are not being given access to credit, they will not be able to grow their businesses. Just to give an example and the statistics, at this point of time, we disperse approximately 150,000 nano loans a day. Out of 150,000 nano loans, 37,000 nano loans are being dispensed to women entrepreneurs on daily basis. There can be, and there's been a lot of discussion, either these loans are being given for productive purposes or consumption purposes. But the lot of data which we have looked at is that a lot of women have used those loans on daily purposes as a home chef and also buying a bit of a groceries and other things and also fruit and vegetable markets, and they sell it at the end of the day and return the loans. So I think it's very important to look at the perspective when we see women access to credit, how we can enable them, how we can encourage them. Until we don't encourage them, we don't enable them, it will be very difficult for us providing access to credit, not only to the women borrowers, but also to the borrowers, which in terms of MSME are leading in front. What we have done is that there are a lot of social and cultural barriers to it when it comes to giving access to, and a lot of them are informal economy and undocumented economy, which we are working towards a lot of women borrowers, that how can we help them and train them in terms of financial literacy? How can we train them, help them in getting their own SIM and own smartphone? That is also reduce and limit the social barrier in opening to a bank account. And as a mobile bank, we have also offered live, real-time account opening. So by having a smartphone, you can just have your account open immediately, and you can also have your account funds transferred to that account. And there's a lot of data and stats which also says, and we also talked about earlier this day, that when women borrowers make business and get into it, whatever return they make, 70 to 90% of that income is brought back to the household, which means more education, more health to the family, and also more reasons to grow as an economy in terms of our nation. So as a bank, so we are committed towards this V code, and also in terms of providing access to finance, and not even a certain percentage of portfolio. You would like, for example, I'll just give you stats today. Right now, we are roughly around 28% of our portfolio, which is dedicated to women. And every year, we're going to grow it. And in our next 5 years, what we intend to do is that we make it closer to the population of the total women segment in Pakistan. That's going to help them providing equal access to credit as well. Yeah, Zafar Saab just reminded me something very important, which I missed. When we talk about women entrepreneurs and in terms of their financial inclusion, there's also one very important social taboo which we face in our society is inheritance. Only 3% of women in Pakistan get the rightful inheritance. So Mobilink Bank has taken lead on this, and what we have done is that we have taken a campaign at a national level where we have integrated the inheritance calculator with our app. So which means that any woman, any female, anyone who wants to go and see the inheritance, what they actually own in terms of our Islamic calculator, is embedded in this app. So and this is also one thing, which not been discussed very socially, not even in the rural area, but also in the urban areas, and people, educated people and well-exposed people like us, that this is a taboo subject. And that is a subject we want to take it forward and talk about it in a manner that it does not become a taboo, and everyone do get an access. And once this inheritance campaign has been launched and been successfully taken at, and we've seen a lot of people in talking about, and they are directly linked to the financial inclusion, because that's how the people feel, and the women feel actually that they have that amount that coming to it that can be used for various purposes, and they have this rightful inheritance which is with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think just staying on that vein, in terms of, there was some fantastic learnings coming out in terms of how a microfinance bank can position itself to overcome, so it's not just about providing a bank account, but actually as an institution, you can actually play a role in helping her overcome some of her obstacles. So I think in that light, I'd also like to ask the other panelists in terms of what some of your learnings have been so far on the journey that you've all taken with the women, and in the light of that, what do you plan to do next? And yeah, perhaps you, yeah, but
so you know, the biggest learning, and you know, I prompted this to Horace on purpose because this is something which is path-breaking really. The biggest impediment that we've noticed is the taboo around it, the fact that, you know, the social and cultural barriers, and you know what Horace has introduced, what Jazz has done, is really phenomenal. It's something which is helping in breaking that barrier and crossing that hump. I think the starting point should be the people like ourselves, as in the male of the household has to take the lead on it. And the male champions of change, we happen to be the members, Bank of Punjab happen to be the member of Males Champion of Change initiative from Australia actually. We are members of that, and we believe that that is very important to get the mindset changed. It's really, Andrew, at the end of the day, is a mindset change. And then we can talk about, you know, we saw the numbers on digital side, a terminology which has been thrown around by World Bank is a lovely story, like the elite capture that World Bank thrown around, and people love this in Pakistan now. The other one is digital parda. So this digital parda is also a big problem. It's digital veil, by the way. The excess of women towards the internet and all is another big problem, because the lay of the land is such in Pakistan that in order to acquire women, Haris can do it very well because his cost of acquisition is low. But for commercial banks, the cost of acquisition is very high. So it can't be done without the digital solution. And related to them is obviously bringing them into the formal economy. Women number that we saw in the morning was actually about the formal numbers. There is a large number of women which are informally participating, and they are not being part of the whole thing, and hence they don't get the necessary protection which is necessary in the form of health and education and all, which are part of various government programs. So we need to bring them into that formal sort of this thing. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, women inclusion is no longer a CSR activity. It has to be embedded in our DNA, in our the way we operate. Until unless we pursue this as the main proposition in our offering, whether it's product offering or marketing or whatever, or digital solution, I don't think we'll be able to get anywhere in terms of our economic development. And hence the, you know, institution like us, we really mean to take the lead in this particular space, breaking that cliche, and let women be in the main forefront of financial inclusion.
Fantastic. No, I think you made some really important points there. First and foremost, the men have to also have champions of change supporting the women. That's crucial. If we've only got senior managements in banks that are men and also who don't get it, we've got a problem. So initiatives like joining the UN empowerment principles, these type of initiatives, I think, go along with targets set by Banking on Equality and so on. Digital, though, is you're absolutely right. The digital PERDA, as you said. I actually got a question from our board the other day that was saying, well, Andrew, you know, at the end of the day, the mobile phone usage for women in Pakistan is still so low, you haven't actually reached a tipping point yet to digitally financially include. What have you done about it? And it actually caught us off guard, because they were right. At the end of the day, we can talk digital and digital strategy all we like, but if the women don't have the basic kit to get the connectivity and get the access, we're not getting out of the starting blocks. And you're absolutely right on the informal. The majority of women are informal, small, or micro. And again, this is where I think a lot of banks will need to focus on how to formalize and also how to downscale, either through working closely with a partner like a microfinance bank or an MBMFC, or adopting their branchless banking platform, their digital platforms, to make it cost effective, to reach those parts of the market that traditionally they've not been able to reach. So, Nessa, over to you. Your learnings and thoughts.
So a couple of things. Zafar talked about digital, and frankly, I feel as the leading bank with the largest number of branches, for us, really the strategy is phygital. So it's a combination of digital, the branchless banking, and others. But the more important in terms of learnings, and I think we've already started that journey, is around bankers have to get out of the mindset of being simply a bank. And one of the slogans when we talk about HBL is that we're more than a bank. And what that really means is, how do we move out? Other players are moving in, and they're basically gradually coming into the domain which was traditionally banks, and that's okay. But what banks are doing is, we're getting slightly lazy and complacent, if I may use those words. I mean it in a nice way, but we have to extend our reach. One of the things that we've done tangibly is, we've actually set up, in addition to the HBL Microfinance Bank, HBL Zarai Services. That's a recent addition, and it's built around a data concept where you can get essentially seed, fertilizer, you can get agronomist support, you can get rental on rental mechanized equipment, and there is the HBL financing or Zari Taraqqiyati financing, or being a merchant acquirer for what Bank of Punjab is dispersing for their farmers if they want to buy quality seeds. We signed up with Bank of Punjab as well. And that really is, each data is buttressed by 20 kilometers away, these connect shops or Kiryana stores, which basically allow them to draw for their daily needs as well. So there is funding for seed, fertilizer, and that. There was another question around the women empowerment. How do we get the women into deras which have traditionally been, male-dominated in the heartland of the country? And for that, we're very fortunate that while, the Agha Hospital and University is in Karachi, but our women and child healthcare workers and the labs are spread all across Pakistan. So we now are working to look at how do we get visits into these deras, where that will automatically draw women and children. That also improves their health care. So we will continue to look at the dera as becoming a hub or as a center, for all the value add for that Chak. And the Chak is a sub-district in Punjab. I think Zafar is more familiar. I come from that area, so I'm a little familiar with that as well. But that's really the concept, that we have to now stop thinking of ourselves as we just deal in money. In the end, the customer deals in services or products. So either we can just sit here and in the end fade away as people find smarter ways to move forward 20, 30 years ahead. But for our bank, which has been with Pakistan, or it was part of the creation of Pakistan. So we were actually founded in 1941. And we came in when Pakistan got independent. So really, we're not thinking about 3 years, 5 years. It's really about how's life going to look in 20 years. And while we need to be profitable and continue to lead this year, but how do we also plan with everything that is coming and be ready for that as well? And I think for all my colleagues, I think that's the way we should go. And clearly, I think the other thing is Islamic. So we have a very aggressive now conversion plan where essentially 2 provinces which are very amenable to Islamic banking, as Irfan Saab said, will be 100% converted. So I think we have to look at where the customer demand is coming from and be willing to offer the services, and then being able to extend beyond that and continue to look at what do they need the money for. And Irfan Saab will vouch for it when it comes his turn, that Islamic banking is a bit of a confusing term because it's really about services and trade. So in a more evolved Islamic banking economy, we really should be funding what the customer needs at the back end, in the background, and really not be dealing with structures which are Sharia compliant to put money in somebody's pocket. So I think there's a very fundamental shift that will come in Islamic banking, maybe 10 years around the road, where we will have the digital technology to basically embed and reduce the paperwork in it.
No, fantastic. And I think a lot of really good points there. Thinking beyond being purely a bank, I think, if we look at a lot of the top banks around the world that are working with women, they adopt more of an ecosystem approach. They don't come at it and bring in the marketing and product guys and girls and say, give us a pink product. They say, hold on, what's the demand? Where are the women's lives not right? So one area you mentioned, health. Health is generally, in most markets, the #1 concern for a woman. Her own, but also her children's, her husband, especially if he's the main. So for her to have a bank that would somehow weave in some sort of health benefit and support into the bundle that's being offered would suddenly turn it not about pricing, but a much more value proposition, to just use an example. But it is about developing a long-term plan for this. Irfan, over to you in terms of some of your learnings. You mentioned a few already. Any others you'd like to bring to the fore?
Right. Andrew, the luxury they have of a very long history. Mizan is only a 25-year-old bank right now. So it started with a very modest beginning, and mashallah now in terms of transaction volume, it is among the top 5. But slowly and gradually, our learning basically showing that, we are there, like he said, to provide service to our customers, whether they are top multinationals, big local corporates, or what we are talking about here is the small, women SME entrepreneur. So we really take that approach that despite the fact that we've grown bigger, but we consider ourselves as a very small bank, maybe segmented in, that each branch is like everything. So I think, I feel very optimistic that this code would give that kind of a foundation to bring women entrepreneur in the bank. We've talked about taboos in Pakistan, that women would not go to a bank, they would not own a bank account, they would not own a SIM. But, since we are in Islamic bank, I would want to go to the start of the Islamic era. So the very first lady of Islam was Bibi Khadija, right? The wife of Prophet Muhammad, the first wife of Prophet Muhammad. She was one of the iconic entrepreneur, with not just working in the Arabian land, but outside that region as well, with a lot of delegation of powers, risk-taking, everything. So if the very first lady of Islam can do that, I'm sure that all of us can do that. I'm associated with more girls and women than men because I've got 4 children, 3 of them are daughters. Wife is 1. Zafar doesn't have that luxury, yeah. So he's trying to bring more women entrepreneurs so that he may find a partner, but up to now, no success. That's why he has to bring in more customers as well. But, I mean, so the feeling is there that why should our daughters be neglected compared to our sons or brothers versus sisters? So we were all born to a lady, all of us, irrespective of our current sex. So I think that this thrust has to continue, and I'm glad that State Bank is taking that initiative along with ADB and all the partners. But this is the way to go, and inshallah, I'm sure that with focus, we can make it happen.
And just taking the lead from what Irfan Sahab just mentioned about me, I have to pick the bone up with Zainab. She mentioned that, young entrepreneur in the first line are exempted. I said entrepreneur is fine, but young, why have you taken us out of that equation? So this is not acceptable to us. This is something which we got really offended about. And you know the reason why, now that Irfan Sahab has already revealed that hidden jewel.
So you're still young.
Well, just conscious of the time, I've been told to wrap this up. I'll just give Harris the final word in terms of some of his final learnings, and then we'll have to wrap up. Harris, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess, when we talk about women entrepreneurs, I think we have to talk about the whole ecosystem. How the whole ecosystem is going to help these women being more entrepreneurial and giving access to credit. This is one of the components. So I think we need to give them smartphones, SIM, bank accounts, and access to credit, but also tools to do business. How can we help them in terms of making them in a more comfortable position where they can do their businesses? And secondly, I think important thing is that we cannot take that climate catastrophe out of that women ecosystem, because Pakistan is the most vulnerable in the top 10 due to climate risk. And in the last 3-4 years, we have seen floods and different climate challenges. And when we see these climate challenges, as we all know that 40% of our informal women is related to livestock, they get affected. If there's something happen in the rural and remote areas, the first person who get affected either it's by education or health is women. When it comes to a family, they will take their daughter out of school because of this crash-free and they let their son go. So I think they all need to be looked at together and they cannot be looked at separately. So I think anything that when it comes to women empowerment, growth for women or access to credit, we also have to link it with our climate. And that's what exactly Nasser was mentioning, that we cannot take this out. And the same with the bank, we've also got a specific program called Change to Sustain, which is linked with our women entrepreneurship and women incubation centers, which helps them also to analyze where we can add more value when we see these are challenges coming and taking place in different parts of Pakistan.
Fantastic. Well, we've been on quite a journey over the last 40 minutes with some of the top bankers in the market who've signed up and committed to the code. And I think there's just 3 or 4 big themes I think that's come out. One is around collaboration and partnership, collaborating with each other. This should be seen as a sectoral initiative, not something that any one bank can conquer. And partnerships also with non-banks and other players, and think more ecosystem. So we're not just flogging bank accounts and loans, right? We can play a much bigger role in supporting our women. Then in terms of, and that relates to the value that we can provide our clients. They don't just want bank accounts, nor do they particularly just want to come into our branches. So we've got to think digital. We've got to think how we can leverage our digital footprint to reach often informal, rural-based women out in the field. And last but not least, we can't forget climate. We don't know what's around the corner that could knock out a third of the country again, like happened in 2022. And women are often, we saw in the statistics after 2022 floods, women often take they're impacted harder and they take much longer to recover after the floods. So build that in. But I'd like to now just thank the esteemed panelists for all their insights today. Big round of applause, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We've just received great news that we have one more signatory who wants to sign on to the code right now. So we'll move on to one more letter signing. Okay, we're ready for the letter signing. So I will request Mr. Munir Kamal to please come on stage and sign the letter.
Had to be different.
Thank you very much. This is very exciting. So as we come towards the close of the ceremony, we want to give mementos to our esteemed speakers and panelists. And for this, I would like to request Sayyid Samar Hasnain Sahab, Ms. Christine, and Mr. Abid Kamar Sahab to please come on stage. We'll start with the panelists of the last session. So for this, I would like to first request Mr. Zafar Masood to come forward. Next, Mr. Nasser Salim. Next, President Mizan Bank, Mr. Irfan Siddiqui. Mr. Haris Mahmood, President, Mobilink Microfinance Bank. And finally, our moderator for this session, Mr. Andrew McCartney. So now we'll give mementos to the participants of the first session. So I'd like to first request Ms. Inez Marie. Next, Mr. Ishtavan. I'd like to next call upon Mr. Shazib Ali, ADB. Miss Peruka Rasanjali. And for moderating this session, I'd like to request Miss Christine to give a memento to Syed Samar Hasnain Saab. Zainab. Yes. We already got it. Yes. Next, I'd like to request Ms. Zainab Saeed to come on stage for moderating the Women Entrepreneur Showcase. I'd now like to request Mr. Abid Saab to receive his shield for serving as the We Finance Code National Champion.
And our next award is for the code coordinator, who's done a great job as the moderator also today. So this is for Faika Naseem, who is the code coordinator. And of course, today's event would not have been possible without the logistical prowess of Miss Humaira Nadeem. So I'm just going to announce hers too. So thank you, Humaira, for all the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Zainab, for stepping in. As we near the conclusion of today's proceedings, I would like to once again thank all the participants for being here. This event was jointly organized by Asian Development Bank, and we're so happy that we've taken this huge milestone which will pave the way for women entrepreneurs in the country. Thank you very much, and please join us for lunch.